And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to our first ever live Fanalysis. Matt will explain what that is in a moment briefly, but for the moment, we are the Council Forcecast. I'm Retty4. This is Evan Nova95.
Hello.
This is Grey Jedi91.
Hey guys.
And this is Antoine Bandelet.
Booklet!
And today we're going to be reviewing The Last Jedi in great detail, I believe. Matt, do you want to explain what the Fanalysis idea is that we're rolling with at the moment?
All right, so if anybody here knows us from our other escapades on what we call the Council Forcecast, we've sort of rebranded ourselves as Fanalysis, which is when we all get together and talk about nerdy stuff like this. We have a range of topics. It's not just Star Wars anymore. It just happens to be Star Wars today, and we're talking about Star Wars, or in theory, this is Star Wars, right? Star Wars, The Last Jedi. Spoiler review. I want to get that really clear.
Yeah.
You guys have a few minutes where we're not going to be talking about spoilers, but those are incoming.
We will give you a fair warning when we are getting into spoilers.
You have a good 10 seconds to bail, so no panic on that front.
And just, very quickly, like Fanalysis is not all going to be streaming. There will still be recorded podcasts and other features that we're working on. We have a lot of stuff in development. More announcements will be forthcoming, but I think it's best if we really kind of keep focused on what everyone's here for today, The Last Jedi. So with that in mind, turning it over to Antoine to explain the structure of our discussion moving forward here.
Hey guys, as Matt has already said, this first few minutes is going to be spoiler free. So if you have not seen the movie yet, also people in the chat kind of respect that for at least a few minutes right now. We're going to talk about our overview of what we kind of felt about the film coming out of it, just a general look at our review. And then we're going to move into our in-depth review, which will get deep into spoilers. We'll give you guys fair warning when we get there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, do we want to get into how we're going to structure the second half of it? Not really, right? That's just for us, yeah.
Yeah, we're just going through scenes and plot points like in our Force Awakens review, so...
Yeah.
All right, so with that...
now.
Yeah, so I guess with that, I'll start. I think it's very funny, and people who already saw my video on this know that it's funny that this movie is about balance, the theme of it. Part of the theme is balance. And I came out of it in conflict. I came out of the movie just I don't know how to feel about that. And the first thing I thought was just it was a mess. I don't know what to latch onto. There was things that I definitely did enjoy and were wow, that's the best thing I've seen of a Star Wars, in terms of imagery or maybe performance. There was things in here that I really did enjoy, but then there was other things that just really, really rubbed me the wrong way, and deeply. And that happened from scene to scene. It wasn't the first half of the movie was this and the second. No, it was sequence to sequence was hills and valleys, as Matt and I called it a little bit earlier. But yeah, that's my pretty much overview. It's very mixed. I do, at the end of the day, net a little bit positive on the movie as an overall experience. But yeah, we'll get more into that in spoilers.
Okay, so Matt, why don't you jump in next?
Next? Okay. If you've ever watched any sort of long-running series about a group of people, especially in the sci-fi genre, there's usually going to be an episode where somebody gets transported into an alternate dimension or reality where everything is sort of the same, but it's fucked up. And there's these cool sort of kernels of ideas, or there's interplay between characters that's interesting. There might be spectacle that's cool. That's what this movie is to me. But the thing is about most of those episodes, there's a reset button at the end where everything goes back to normal and we get to go back to the real world. There is no reset button. This is reality. So without getting into spoilers yet, I don't hate this movie. There are things I enjoy about it. I don't want to parrot Antoine in that regard, but that's kind of where I'm at. But for as much as I could say about this positive things, there's a lot of negativity from me inbound here. Okay, so that's my general spoilerless view. Evan.
Okay, so I literally just got back from seeing the film less than an hour ago, so my views are pretty fresh at the moment. And again, it's kind of hard for me to say how I really feel without giving spoilers, like you guys have already said, but my experience was very much the same. In fact, literally the first thing I did after I walked out of the theater is I turned to my friend Max, who's not horribly familiar with Star Wars, but is slowly getting into it. I asked him what he thought, and his response was word for word, "That was a lot of stuff, and I don't know how to feel about that stuff." And you know what? I feel the same way because, well, if you're expecting a lot to happen, a lot does happen. And if you're looking for a viewing experience that's going to stick with you, that is what you're going to get. Now, you might not necessarily agree with a lot of the things they did. However, I do feel that, again, like one of my biggest problems with The Force Awakens was how disposable it was and how much it felt like, how little it really stuck with me. This is definitely a movie that I'm going to be thinking about down the line. As for how I feel about those things, we'll get to that later. But I think it's kind of like one of those. It's kind of like indoor skydiving. It's not the most enjoyable experience ever, but it's something you should try at least once just to experience it because you will remember it. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie overall. So I'd say see it maybe at least once, but you're in for one wild ride. So I'll just leave it at that.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm kind of a mix of all three of you. I was the first to see it of all of us, so I've had about 4 days to sit and mellow on it, and lots of friends who are obsessed with Star Wars almost to the same degree as I am, to kind of hash it out with. I went into this film on a lore perspective expecting nothing. Bar was at the very bottom, but I was expecting a very good film because of everything that we'd seen. We've none of us watched any of the trailers, by the way. None of us have seen any of the material. We had absolutely no clue what we were expecting going in from the actual content we were going to get. But we expected from the lineup that we were given on the creator's side that it was going to be a solidly good film. It wasn't, in my opinion. It was a film. I certainly agree with Evan that it will live with me for the rest of my days. But but at the same time as Matt, I don't hate this film. I despise Force Awakens, as I'm sure many of you will remember. But I think because my expectations for that were so vastly different, I came into this with the right frame of mind. The stuff that I have to criticize in here is more of a case of like, what, rather than any kind of personal attachment to it. There were some good things as well, though, and I'm looking forward to talking about them as with Matt. I think we all share the good moments, actually, pretty unanimously across all
more or
viewers.
less, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I am. I'm kind of like, how did this happen? We are forever going to remember this. Let's jump into what we think
have
of the
some
actual
staying
stuff.
power, that's for sure.
So much to talk about. So much.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
And for those who are wondering, Jin Sarai could not come today. He was busy, I believe, right? Was that?
Yes.
He's
seen the
visiting.
film
He's
yet.
visiting.
He hasn't seen the
his
movie
grandmother.
yet. Yeah, and I think he was just busy. And then our schedules were conflicted, and we were just like, we just got to like do it now while it's like fresh. He will, I believe, we're going to be doing a separate review for him on Fanalysis, right?
Yes, yeah, we'll be
Is that how we're doing
recording
it, right?
another
Okay.
thing for him later, and he'll jump in with his opinions. And we'll also probably cover a lot of stuff that we're not going to be going into too much detail here in separate videos and
Right.
shorts, so that we don't end up waffling about
Which he'll
something
be a
that
part
really
of as
doesn't
well.
need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, at the end of this
So for
video, I
those
don't
who are
think we
like, where
mentioned
is
it.
he?
We'll be
Why is he
having
not around? Like, you'll hear from him.
Chill
Yeah.
out. He
Also-
just hasn't seen the film yet. He's still here. He's
Definitely,
in
yeah.
spirit.
Definitely. I don't think we mentioned at the start as well, but at the end of this video, we'll also be having a brief intermission before jumping into fan conversations. So
Oh,
if you
thank
guys
you for
want to hang
mentioning
out,
that.
yeah.
Yes, so
Forgot about that.
anyone who wants to have a conversation with us that is not just us doing like a structured podcast, stick around after the intermission, and then we will be doing a live Q&A and discussing with you guys what maybe we missed or something you guys want to hear our opinions on and that kind of thing. So yes, with that, we'll give you guys a complete, we'll give you like a 1 minute warning right now. If you don't want any spoilers,
Leave.
it's time to
Leave.
peace out.
Leave now.
Yeah.
Go and watch this film. I promise it will be a memorable experience. Can't promise any more than
Yes,
that.
it
But it will be
will.
memorable. Yeah. Let's see if they.
I'm giving him
vanished.
like 10 more seconds.
Yeah, I was
I'm watching the
telling you
chat.
to be silent for a whole minute.
Oh
really.
boy, this is gonna be interesting.
All right, that's good enough. I don't
Right.
care if you're still here. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna do it for
Moving
you
on.
guys.
Where do we begin?
Where do
I
we
think
begin?
at the very start of the
How about
movie, you can see right away. Like even it was within the first 5 minutes where I had feelings of whoa, what is happening, and it had to do with the humor, which is something I had a lot of issues with. Some of it landed. I'm not gonna lie. Some of it landed, and it made me laugh, and I had a good time with it. But there was other times where it just felt like they were just inserting humor just for the sake of it. And I feel like that's kind of happening with Marvel as well. And, Disney is kind of helming that same thing, where they do a lot of bathos, which is undercutting what could be an otherwise a very tense scene, and then just giving comedy without letting that drama sit. And then especially when the beginning of the movie is about, especially with the opening crawl, it talks about like, the First Order reigns and is
that's
bearing down on resistance. And then it's like, why do we have this joke? Like, does he hear me? I think he's tooling with you, sir. It's like, we're supposed to be fearing these guys. Why are we?
They undermine the villains.
Word here. Yeah, there's a word called tone here that we're not respecting at all. How do you expect somebody to be able to relate to what's going on? Yeah, exactly. It was parody. It was self-parody.
You mentioned the opening crawl, though, but that was actually the first thing that got me to laugh. Sorry, Evan, 1 second. The opening crawl, I literally laughed out loud as it finished because I thought, okay, we are doing Empire Strikes Back then. Fortunately, it wasn't quite the same, but from that title crawl, it may as well have been the Battle of Hoth about to roll on screen. I was very worried about that, and thank God they didn't. But yeah, you're right. The balance of that tone is just terrible at the start. You undermine your villains, which you haven't even established in the first place, and they continue that for the rest of the film. Alongside the fact that you're also having Poe be indestructible Pilot Man again, which bugs me.
Yeah.
And not just the tone with the humor side, but the dramatic weight that this, which is my biggest flaw with this film overall. Actually, the lack of weight in anything. There's no stakes because you've got humor and villain being thrown around and Poe being completely invincible right alongside this supposed to be touching moment between. Where we lose the first of the Tycho sisters.
Yeah. So I'll interject there. That's where I think we'll have our first little disagreement, because I do think that scene did do a very good job of setting up the stakes and setting up Poe's arc, which is something I felt was something I was 100% on board with, where some of these things in this movies I wasn't really with. Poe's arc and what he had to go through that movie, going from the hot shot to being an effective leader that Leia was trying to convey, being like, hey, you can't just get yourself killed in these situations. You need to survive for the next battle. It was cool. I mean, I get that. Yeah. He shouldn't have been able to single-handedly take out all those turrets on the Dreadnought. Like that was kind of ridiculous. But I do get from a story and a narrative standpoint why we needed to see him being so good, and then also getting a lot of his crew killed. And that whole sequence, I felt it was very reminiscent to Rogue One for me, in the sense that it felt like a war and the struggles of a battle and people's sacrifices. So I thought that part, after that bit of humor, which I was once it got to the battle part, I was all right with that part.
I have a few comments, and I'm in agreement in the sense that you do need the situation provides a nice sort of scope into that difference between sort of Leia's sort of larger view of the matter and Poe's more I'm focused on this moment right here, and we need to win right now.
His head's in the cockpit, sort of, she says.
Yes, right. Which is again played a little bit as a joke, but it's a serious critique that's actually true. But that moment, we talked about the humor aspect of it. The movie needed I don't want to insult the editor, but it needed better editing in that sense. You can have that moment of humor. Right. The humor played too long. It just kept going.
Yes.
Can we stop now? We get the joke, and then what baffled me about that, I was kind of okay with Poe being super awesome this time around, at least in this limited sense of that scene. What baffled me was the incompetence of the Empire, which is why I had to write down his name and pull up Captain Kennedy, who's played by an actor whose name is Mark Lewis Jones. A special commendation to him for being sort of competent, in the midst of whatever this was supposed to be. It felt very cartoonish to me, the way that the Empire, First Order, was acting in this sense. But it was overall well done from Poe and company's perspective. I agree with Antoine on that. I just want to reiterate, the reasons why, the humor kind of mucked that up at first for me.
I get the idea.
It's funny you call it that.
Go ahead, Evan. Yeah.
No, just a brief little thing. It's funny you call it that, Matt, because for the first maybe 10 minutes of this movie, I honestly felt like I was watching a Saturday morning cartoon. It had that feel to it, and that's why my hopes for this movie didn't start off too strong.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I definitely get the same have the same opinion with the Saturday night cartoon thing, Saturday morning, I guess. The tonal shift from that and the loss of the sister, which I agree with Antoine. I did enjoy that moment and the idea that we're trying to get across, and the idea of having Poe's cockpit mentality weighed against Leia's overall view. But the thing that I didn't get is the fact that they didn't mesh. Even on a I guess plot level. For example, Leia says, "Pull your squadron back." At that point, we hadn't seen a squadron, which says squad actually, but yeah, we haven't seen it. The next thing we get is when they come in after the fact. So she's talking about stakes that haven't even been established in the scene. Pull your squad back. Poe's by himself at this point. It's disjointed on that basic level, but also on the emotional side.
There's a lot of that in the movie, like little nitpicky things like that don't make logical sense. Yeah.
You're absolutely correct on that. Like I was just mainly what I was agreeing with Antoine's point about was like Poe's the idea of his arc, like in like his actual actions of the character, like that all felt very right. Like that's really what I was talking about. But you're correct. Like
we can get into like the nitty gritty, like
establishment, right? Like just establishment in general. Like with this movie, that's good. The discussion,
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. That's what I don't mean to be nitpicking on that specific moment, but just the fact that it was trying to establish this kind of theme for the character, and it was a good direction to go for Poe. I think for the entirety of the film, it's just each time it tried to hit the emotional beat, it either had failed in the setup or it had gone. The execution was mistimed. Like I said with the humor, I laughed a fair few times in this film, but it was also at a time when I realized I should not be laughing right now. Why am I laughing?
Right.
They should be taking this scene, making
like emotional whiplash or
something. This is supposed to be something I'm taking seriously. Why am I not? It's
literally the definition of bathos. Like that's literally the definition of bathos. But yeah, even more comedy. Like once we get into the battle ends, and then we get into being reintroduced to Finn, you get more like comedy. Like I mean, I guess that's okay still. But even I was like, I guess I was already having whiplash from like the previous session of comedy, off-putting comedy, where him like falling off his medical bay, especially when the last time we saw him, he was like near death. It's supposed to be more of like like Finn's back, and it became like this like, like weird, like spewing
water
stuff.
suit with the
It was the introduction of the tonal bubble as well for me. How that ship, there is no sense of urgency at all at any point. Like right out, not at that point they had a brief breather there, but from this is the point where you establish that they are running around, everything's panicking, everyone's supposed to be panicking. The battle that we will come to discuss in a second is going on later on, and they're just talking as though it's completely fine. It's like, what are you doing? This is not only doesn't fit the canon of Star Wars lore in general because of how the mechanics of the world work, but also their own film setting and their own new canon. The emotional weight of the situation wasn't borne down on the characters in the way it should be because of just the way they were trying to get the plot done in every moment through this film.
I think the next thing, Finn asked like, "Where's Rey?" Which throughout this movie I actually liked how they were both asking for each other, because it kind of like did bring back like The Force Awakens, like that was their adventure, and for them to just be constantly like, "Oh, is my friend okay?" like kind of a thing. I thought it was kind of cute. Like I'd actually liked those little bits just, with them asking each other. But then so we move on.
Arguably, I was just gonna say that's arguably like the only time that really happens in a sensible way in this entire film in terms of following up on like events that like should.
Oh, right, like leading to one to the other.
Yeah, or in terms of like just characters checking up on one another. Like nobody, right. There's like very little follow through between like even this film and the previous one. Forget about trilogy overarching stuff. It's crazy.
But yeah, then so this is where we'll get into diverging because we need to focus. So we'll talk about at this point Rey and Luke, and that's when Finn asks about Rey, we get to the island planet, which I don't know what the name of it is. I don't really care. And again, we have another moment of bathos where we have that big, like, hey, here's a saber. Like, I need to be trained. Like, what am I going to do? Like, tell me what to do. And then we have Luke Skywalker take the saber and throw it over his shoulder. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is not my Luke.
Nope.
This is not my Luke.
And this is actually
at that point, I was just hurt.
And that's one of the better examples of it being Luke as well. And if the first thing you do is have him throw something that should have so much, not just in the universe itself, but for the meta kind of knowledge of the audience, so much meaning, and to just throw it over for the sake of a comedy moment. And yeah, it was funny, but we shouldn't be laughing. I mean,
Yeah,
especially
it was
when
funny, I laughed, but it was like, no.
yeah, especially when you're thinking about this is the moment that we've been waiting for 2 years. You know, the end of the first film established this setup, and then it was it's like okay, thanks for that.
If he was gonna do that, I wish he'd done it after like he explained himself or like had a conversation and like if that had gone somewhere and at the end he was frustrated and he threw it like as like a punctuation mark at the end of that would have been fine. But like it just came off wrong, just utterly wrong.
Yeah,
just a conversation between him and Ray or something. Do you know what this is? Do you know what this means? And then
they don't.
Back and forth,
it's so awkward because he drops it and then stomps off to go sit in his hut, without a word. It's just, who's writing this?
Yeah.
And it was not even at that point. I was still thinking, okay, they still have an opportunity to explain to me why he's gotten this way. There might have been a story out there. Literally, I think there could have been a story out there, if well told, that made me empathize for Luke's choices and decisions in this movie. Why he forsaken the Jedi and why he did what he did with Ben Solo, which we're going to get into. But every time they gave us a little bit more breadcrumbs, I was like, that's not the cake I'm looking for.
It's not the character. It's just not Luke, fundamentally, at any point.
Right.
Which
it really isn't.
As we mentioned just before the stream started as well, though, not to disparage Mark Hamill himself, because he brings Luke to the scenes that he can, and you get the sense that if this was written with Luke's actual character in mind, he would carry it across just as well now as he ever did. But because the writing isn't in his favour here, everything just rings either false or very false, or just meh at best.
I'll read his quote from Celebration real quick before we get deeper into
read the quote.
what we were talking about. But yeah. So this is what he said at Celebration a year ago. He said, I at one point had to say to Ryan, quote, I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for this character. Now, having said that, I have gotten it off my chest, and my job now is to take what you've created and do my best to realize your vision, which I give him props for, because it's like, that's really, as an actor, like a profession of acting, that is a professional answer right there. It's like, I don't agree with this choice you're making in the script, but you know what? I'm an actor. I'm going to bring the best I can, which I believe he does. I think in this movie, he does the best he can with what he was given.
And considering he disagrees with it, it's even more impressive.
I respect him for being able to give as much as he does give, like considering the fundamental disagreement, and I respect him arguably more for actually being honest and sharing that with like the world, that was his opinion, because I feel like most people probably wouldn't for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind, because we'll probably be railing on Luke a lot in this review, but it's definitely not anything to do with Hamill, who I think does a smashing job even with the material.
Right. On my second viewing, I actually try to, in my brain, like turn off what I wanted Luke to be, and like say, okay, let me see what the movie's presenting. And when I looked at it from there, like Mark's performance is really, really well done. But it's just that same as he says, I'm just fundamentally in disagreement with what they think Luke is or would have become.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone
even there,
really...
there's only so much though that even like his good acting can like salvage, because there's certain scenes that just don't play in an organic way, like even in the context of what they're trying to do, it just it doesn't work. How long is it before he actually says something to her?
He's in the hut, and he says the first thing he says is "Go away."
Yeah, he says "Go away." Right.
Pounding on the door.
She's trying to like bust down the door, right? Like that's
no, that was actually Chewie did. I actually thought that was her at first. I was like, wow.
No. But I mean, like she's like pounding on the door. He's like, go away. Yeah, it's like, are you serious? Like, I mean, you're not even going to like properly throw her off your island. Like, I mean, who wrote this? It's ridiculous.
But yeah, then Chewie coming back, and then like the Han thing. I felt like at first when I first watched, I was like, why did he not like? And we actually had the conversation too about Force Awakens. We're like, how did Luke not know what was going on with anybody in the galaxy? But then they did give a reason for it. They did say he cut himself off from the Force, and we do see him reconnecting with the Force, halfway into the movie when he talks to Leia. But they did give an explanation for that,
They do kind of undermine it when they show him pulling off force feats though on the island.
Right.
It's like consistency, because I thought, okay, maybe he has cut himself off because he's not felt the billions of people blown up by the Starkiller base, and he's not felt harm. So clearly he has cut himself off. But then we see, to be fair, I did enjoy the idea they were going with the kind of daily routine stuff they were showing off. With exception to the last one.
That milk,
yes.
Like, I mean, could we not do that? Like, I did not need to see that. I wish I could have.
No, it was a little much. Yeah.
I don't get what they were even trying to do there. I genuinely don't.
Like money was spent on that to make that a moment that would could that have not been spent on anything else? Like, please, like, do something better. There's got to be something else you could touch up, like, you know, some CGI that's kind of bad. Like, please, anything but that. That was horrific.
Yeah, I just don't get what the point was.
And they focus on it.
Yeah,
like, so clearly.
It's another one of those hanging humor moments where they just spend way too long on it. A friend of mine mentioned it. I think it was kind of to get across the point that he's supposed to be living off the living force. You know, he's living on this island. This is how he gets through the days. But that could have been done with so much more meaning and so much simpler. Like, literally, they could have just shown him with a scene kind of plucking a tomato from his garden, and explain. And
he goes fishing.
Yeah, or the fishing.
Like, milking.
Just
please, like
anything. But you could have made it part of a lesson. You know, he's not at this point willing to teach her, but you know, he could still just almost unintentionally teach, and that could be a part of who Luke is. But we don't see any of that. It's just grumpy old man with a large stick and a jug of extremely disgusting milk.
But then he does eventually, like, the story does turn to him saying, like, okay, you know what? After a while, after like him being followed, he's like, okay, I'll teach you. Like, I'll give you 3 lessons, and like I'll teach you why the Jedi have to end. Oh no! First, before she goes to the library, the first Jedi temple
library,
with the 5-6 books or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had the conversation of who are you? Wait, I forget what that scene was about. Like, what was it? Oh yeah, it was just about him. Like, she was saying, give me a reason why you're not helping. Like, we deserve that, especially with, you know, your sister Leia sending me here and stuff like that. How did you guys feel about at this point in the movie when you first watched it, and he was giving like his exclamations for why the Jedi like shouldn't be? Like, what were your feelings?
This was the first moment in which I felt that it was going somewhere, at least. Like, up until this point, I thought, what are they doing? I was genuinely baffled with everything they'd presented. But this was the point where I saw a kind of it felt like Luke again. You know, Mark was able to bring Luke the character to it because the writing allowed him in this brief moment. The MacGuffin stuff and the law and everything they've decided, like Matt mentioned with the religion thing, not a fan. But
I mentioned that off camera.
Off camera.
Off camera. Yeah.
Make that clear. Yeah, I'm not a fan of them calling it the Jedi religion.
I didn't like that.
Yeah, it's an archaic expression from before the Lord.
But I mean, to be fair, that was in the very, very first Star Wars where they did say it was religion.
Spoken by someone who doesn't know what he's talking about at all. Like,
that's
you know, like, so So I mean, and I don't want to focus on that, and that's not like something that like I judged the movie against. I just there's a tiny nitpick. But anyway, Callan, what were you were going somewhere?
Yeah, sorry. It was a brief moment where there was a personal connection. Like, this was one of the examples of humor that paid off for me because it was part of a conversation that you can almost feel natural. When Luke says, "Okay, that is pretty much middle of nowhere." I liked that.
Where you're from?
Yeah. So that's pretty much nowhere. That was a moment where you felt it was a natural. It was a joke, yes, but it was natural. It fit the conversation, and it helped establish some sort of personal connection for Rey to Luke. Because at this point, he's just a grumpy stranger who's literally blown all of our expectations in a negative way. And that feeding into who are you, why are you here, I liked that that was the kind of direction they took on the tone.
Like Antoine's question, like, how do we feel about this? Is this the same time that like he mentioned the Jedi's legacy being one of failure? Is that the same conversation?
No, that comes later.
Is that later?
It's like
that's
the
later?
scene later.
Okay.
It's like
that's later when they're in the cave with that little fountain thing.
So so this is the one where like. Does she what's her takeaway from this? Like, what does she say? What does she bring to this conversation? Like, does she answer his question, or what does he take from it? I can't remember how this scene ends.
It just says that, I mean, it was just him saying that the Jedi needed to end, and he just walks off. And then when we get from that, the next thing is her saying, like, or him saying, "I'll teach you like 3 lessons, and I'll explain to you why."
Okay, so this is the one where she like complains about like not knowing how to deal with something inside her, and he's like, "You need a teacher."
Yeah.
But I'm not teaching
me.
it.
It's the introduction of the moment where she says that what's my place in all of this, and it's on a meta level. It's very valid because this film kind of addresses that. What is my place in this saga, in this story? And we'll get to it later. But that question is answered rather unfortunately, in both tone and execution. But this is where that's introduced, and it's I like that she's asking Luke that because it makes sense in lore and just on a personal level. You know, this is the only person she knows is capable of teaching her what she needs to know, unless she wants to go to the darker alternatives.
It irks me that they waited this long to go anywhere in terms of an actual conversation between the two. It's such an awkward introduction to them. Like, forget the fact, like, the disappointment of him chucking the lightsaber aside. Just how long he spends, like, going about his business, perfectly content to have her follow him around, like, aimlessly. That's just ridiculous. Like, you know, but could we not have, like, just cut all that out of the movie and, like, started with this, please? Like, I just don't understand. I'll be saying this a lot. I don't understand why this story is being told. I understand
why specifically that story is being told.
Yeah.
And why we're not getting to see Luke. That's what I want to know.
Going back to what we were saying about the Jedi religion aspect, because it does lead into the next sequence with these two when they're in that fountain area and they're talking about it. It did set up what Luke was trying to argue about the Jedi being religion and that there's vanity by saying. But although what he was saying, I was like, okay, these are kind of interesting nuggets and ideas. I don't think they were justified because I never felt like there was ever a moment that said Jedi and the light, or I don't know, or the fact that Rey would understand that she'd be holding up the Jedi like on this pedestal. She was just really just trying to figure out, like, I just want to figure out what's going on inside me. I don't think she really was saying like, I want to figure out the Jedi and what they're doing.
Is this the one where he starts teaching her? Like, is that what you're talking about?
A little bit. Yeah, he starts explaining why
he's
the Jedi
kind of back and forth right now.
Okay, like the one where he like, is this the legacy of failure speech?
Right.
Like, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
That his examples were like they felt like a fan typed that. Like somebody who's like
seriously.
Like, I mean, it was like, so from your perspective, Darth Sidious was like the Jedi's fault. Like, yeah, he happened on their watch. I get that, but like they didn't create him. You know, like it's like, and he's Luke Skywalker. Like it's like you're the Jedi that like cleaned that mess up. Like, what are you talking about? Like the Jedi's failure, and it rang false. It rang like a complete oversimplification to me.
I agree, and then also he also brings up Darth Vader as well. He said like the Jedi Order they created Darth Vader, and then like Rey has to remind him, but you brought him back, and it's like, Luke,
why does she have to do that?
You were
there, Luke.
Yeah. His whole original trilogy arc, especially in the Return of the Jedi, you had Obi-Wan saying like, you know, you're gonna have to kill your father, Yoda, you're gonna have to face him. And he's like, no, like I don't have to do any of these things. And his ultimate decision is to not kill his father, is not to, you know, like to and then to have him. And again, even at this point in the movie, I was like, okay, they still have a chance to explain to me how his mindset just got so distorted from Return of the Jedi to now. I'm okay. You guys still have a chance to do it. So at that point, I still was like, kind of like, okay, give me something. But even so, it was just like, your Luke, your whole being, the reason why you were the Return of the Jedi truly is because of what you did in that last movie, or in Return of the Jedi, I should say. And for you to say what you're saying in the scene, just that really like tugged at me. And no one else in the theater, like I was with, I mean, I guess I was more with like people who were just like casual and more like just jazzed about like more Star Wars movies and the visual of it. We're just like okay with it, and I felt like I was like the only one who's like shaking my head like, no, this is, why is no one else like perturbed by this?
It's so fundamentally broken. No one watched the original trilogies and then thought at the end of Return of the Jedi, moved on to Force Awakens, moved on to this film and thought, yeah, this fits. No one ever would have thought this is how Luke turns out. And while you're right that that they had a chance to kind of fix it based on what they were presenting it in the film itself.
Right.
For me, it was broken even at that point, like beyond repair, because the perspective he was coming at us from was rooted in like a mentality that he'd already had in the original films. You know, the stuff that he did in the originals, he wouldn't have done if it was even remotely possible for his mind to get to the point where it is in this film. If it was more of a retrospective looking back kind of thing, it would make a bit more sense. But he's talking about like concepts that he knew intuitively he was right on way before anything could have thrown out of proportion. Mm-hmm. There's no link. It doesn't sync up, which is probably what Mark Hamill himself was referring to when he had disagreements. It's just not Luke.
No. Yeah.
It is wrong at its core. Like this is just there's no way that this makes sense.
Oh yeah, Evan, I know a lot of people particularly want to hear from you because they know your love for Luke. So yeah, I want to hear like a little bit from you too, like how you feel about it, because.
Oh, me or Evan?
No, sorry, Evan.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
sorry, I didn't hear you, so I wasn't sure who you were talking to.
My bad.
No, I'm very much in agreement. And honestly, this was something I feared for a very long time. Like ever since I heard, like I said, I tried to avoid spoilers, but like even the little remote things I heard about Luke. And I think what they really don't understand about this is the dichotomy between Anakin and Luke is this in the sense that Luke is supposed to be, I mean, this is the very basic way of putting it, but he is supposed to be everything that Anakin was not. He was supposed to not make those same mistakes. He was supposed to have seen things, you know, how do I even describe it entirely?
With compassion
What I'm saying,
and
that's what I was saying.
with care, you know.
With care, exactly. And for him to, it's like you said, for him to go from what he like, ignore the EU for a second and just go
ignore the EU.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Ignore
not even the
ignore
EU
the
stuff.
like I'm a guy who like I know what Luke does like with the new Jedi Order and all. Like just ignore all of that right now. Just from what we see in Return of the Jedi, it does not make sense in any way, shape, or form that Luke would become this jaded, even considering what we learn later down the line. And like, for me, it was just a case of like, no, like this is, like you guys have even said as much. Like, no, Luke would not, act like this. And honestly, it's hard for me to even really like articulate how I'm feeling right now because it's really like.
Feels like a betrayal.
Yeah.
Right.
No, honestly, it feels like I wasn't watching Luke Skywalker. Like you're asking me to talk about Luke Skywalker. To me, that wasn't Luke Skywalker.
When we get to the end of the movie, I'm gonna get to something that what you just said right there. There's a thing that I'm gonna bring up about
you're asking
him
me
not
to
being
give, like,
Luke.
You're asking me to give my opinion on someone who really,
Who's
really
not Luke
loves
Skywalker. Yeah.
Luke. For God's sakes, my channel avatar is fucking Luke from Swarmore. But it's like, for me, it's hard for me to really pin it down because it was so not Luke that it's really like I can't even like manufacture rage about this. It's like so.
You're just numb.
Just numb. I feel really numb right now.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, I mean, going forward,
honestly,
he did.
I don't know how you guys will think about this, but I honestly felt like Luke Skywalker from Dark Empire was more in tune with Luke Skywalker than this was. And for anyone who's read Dark Empire, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, yeah, no, I'm sorry if I can't really articulate how I'm feeling fully, but it's only because I can't really.
No, I mean, your response is telling.
Yeah, exactly what
the
we
response
expected.
itself is telling.
Like I can't. Like I'm really trying hard right now, guys. Like I'm not. This isn't a case of me like running rampant. It's just like I can't. Yeah, I just can't.
It's wrong anyway. Like it's wrong anyway. There's not you can't do any like sort of math to get to this point. But they didn't even do the math.
No.
Like, I mean, there's no build up to this. He's just like this for some reason, and it's bizarre. It's like a sketch, like a comedy sketch on like Mad TV or something, where they just go off in like left field or something, like out of nowhere for the sake of like a joke. This is like alternate reality. It's just, it's inexplicably fucked up.
Not even
and
that.
there's no reset button.
It's unrecognizable.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So the next scene, because I think we got established. So the next scene.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I'm just gonna move you forward. The next scene, there was things that, again, like I was saying, from moment to moment, there was things that I liked and I didn't like. It's when he finally introduced her to reaching out with the Force, and I like the aspect of before we talk about, which I know you're giggling at already.
Sorry.
I did like what she was seeing, when she actually did reach out, like with her actual feelings, how she was seeing, like, peace, and you see like the porgs and the eggshells, and then like violence, the waves coming, life, death, and renewed, and all that, and all the images and how that was edited. I think it was very, very beautiful. But then at the beginning of that scene, of course, we had that joke, which just did not land.
I have the opposite reaction.
But go ahead, Matt, because you had your thing.
I genuinely laughed at that because like this was already like this is FUBAR. Okay, the situation's already like completely off the deep end. Like let me get some joy out of this, and that was like it was a moment where like it got a rise out of me. But like what you're saying, like the moment of like actual introspection and like sensing stuff, I wish that instead of her naming what she's seeing, I wish he was. I wish he was explaining what
That's
she was
true.
saying. I would have rather that she just knows everything, and I don't like that. Like I really wish that even though she can see it, I would rather she can't make sense of it, and he can tell her like this is what you're saying, or like this is the balance, or this is the whole of it. That's the only thing that would change. Like I agree, the way it was shot was great. I just wish she doesn't just automatically know everything.
That's true. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, we'll
That's
get
true.
back to that when we talk about Rey herself, but that is a definite problem with her and has been from day one. But I agree.
Yeah.
The having Luke, it wouldn't fit the way they framed it, of course, because of how he's cut himself off and everything. That was part of the point I was trying to make. But I agree, it would have had so much more power if he'd been just narrating it to her. You know, it would have been a connection between the two, connection to the Force in general, as it being more of a communal experience.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. She can like vocalize what she's saying. I just wish she wasn't able to make instant sense of it without his insight. That's all I wanted.
Right.
Because he didn't really do anything. Like
No.
he just was like, you know.
You're just
And
there
I'm not even
telling her no.
not even sure like what was the point. Like were you building to this earlier before we hijacked
Oh, yeah,
the
no,
conversation?
the point of this scene-
the lesson he decided to teach her, was that even a conception that like she even
It did.
had? Was that it's
No, I did at the end of it because remember she saw the weird cave, the version of the cave in this where there was like that hole in the rocks.
Right.
She had the vision of going into it, and then she's like, it's calling to me, I must go. And then like Luke's like, no, don't do
Right,
it.
right.
And then she went, and she's
straight
like,
to
look,
it.
you went straight to the dark. I'm out. Ah, get her.
I mean,
As though he didn't walk straight into the cave himself back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
that's what I mean. It's like I
Nope.
just didn't like. Why did he decide that this was like her fault or like her bad? Well, we'll get into that with another character like later. But I mean, it just I don't get where he's coming from. Like it just doesn't. It's like written by somebody who doesn't understand even human psychology, let alone lore.
Right.
I also
Because,
like the
yeah,
way...
like-
sorry.
No empathy there because I like how Evan brought up. He's
Oh,
like, yeah,
empathy.
You did
Right.
the same.
Yeah.
You did the same thing. Why are you not saying like? Why are you not empathizing? And be like, hey, I've been through that situation. She's asking you for help. Remember how I asked you for help? Maybe I could do a little bit better job here. You know. Yeah. Just did. Yeah. Again, it just didn't. Another part that did not ring true.
I wasn't a fan of the lack of subtlety with the cave itself as well. The fact that it was literally a like black spot of like seaweed dipping into it, and it's like the Dagobah tree had a lot more subtlety to it, especially considering the fact that it fit the environment. It didn't stand out, which the dark side doesn't. The dark side doesn't stand out. It's supposed to be this creeping sense of always ever presence. You know, it's not this visible thing you can always just see and walk straight towards. It's something you're tricked into.
I don't.
And yeah, Star
into
Wars
it.
is based in Christianity, in which that is what the devil is in Christianity. He's not like just like this pitchfork, demon. He's actually everywhere in life, and he's temptation. He's more of a subtle thing, which Star Wars used to do pretty good with. And yeah, it was pretty overt. I agree, that was pretty overt.
Even with
I
the
just
point
wanna
they're
say,
trying to
though,
make. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say real quick that like over the years, like too many people have complained about that scene though, like in Empire. And, like as much as I love it, like there's lots of people that have been confused by that. So maybe they thought they needed to go a little overt.
Yeah, to make it more visually.
So I'm not sure.
Yes,
I'm willing
but-
to give them a slight pass on that one in terms of like maybe that's not bad filmmaking. Maybe they're just trying to play to their constituency. I don't know.
Right.
I just wanted to get that out there.
I think after this scene, he says, "Oh, you fell," and then she has her conversations with Kylo, which I think is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Is her the connection between Rey and Kylo and the performances they gave, that they got out of each other. I feel like whenever Daisy and Adam were working together, I got more insight into what their characters really were and what really made them tick, in a genuine way. And I like how they did it too. I like how it wasn't like, even though he said like, "Oh, I can't. Can you see my surroundings? I can't see you." I like how they shot it, where it was just you see the
I
two
like
shots.
this.
I think that was well constructed.
It
Like
was
the
very
sound
simple.
treatment, like when they started, like all you hear is their
The
breathing.
breathing, yeah.
Like at first, like that was really well done. That was
Like
and
everything
I was-
stops, sort of.
Yeah, like as baffling as this movie is in general, the presentation is generally overall good, and I was never bored. They were always doing stuff like in the filmmaking process of keeping me engaged or like leaning forward in my seat, like where are they going with this? What's going on? And that was one of the moments I remember, like when they started breathing together. Anyway, moving
the
on.
actual situation itself, I wasn't a fan of, but the way, like I said, the execution was brilliant. The breath, kind of bring in sync and bring the tension and the environment they were in to a close while they go kind of introspective. The way they shot it with the simplicity, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you're right. The actors did an amazing job of showing us like the bare natures of their characters. Even if the writing wasn't doing it, or even if the situation didn't make sense or anything like that, the actual performances they gave managed to pierce through that for me. I could see what they personally were trying to do with this, even if it didn't pay off in the end. because of reasons outside of their control. You did really feel for the characters in those moments, or most of them anyway.
Yeah, okay, I'm trying to think of that first scene ended. I think it was just establishing that they had this connection, and more of like Ray being like, "Get out of here, I hate you," like, and then him like being like, "Oh, what's going on here?" So and then it starts developing. But I think there was a sequence. I think he had the second lesson for her before we got to the next Kylo. Oh, I think it was the revealing, like his first time explaining the story. Correct?
Yes.
Is that the next scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean,
I don't remember how it happened, to be honest. I don't remember how.
I think it goes Kylo and Rey lesson, Kylo and Rey lesson, Kylo and Rey climax.
So I think in the second lesson.
So maybe that concluded with him kind of like asking if he told you what happened, and like she was just like kind of like mystified.
Oh right, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, it was the part where she shot her blaster at him. That was like her reaction, seeing him in vision. He was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh wait, it's not real." Yeah. But then like the character, and the weird caretakers.
Yeah, magically appeared. They weren't there before. All of them, arrive.
The Kermit the Frogs were there, making sure the Jedi library was well maintained. Like what?
Library quotation marks, single K, 5 books. Ugh. But yeah, the entire that kind of situation was weird. It was played for comedy again, which sort of worked, but again, it was just out of place.
It was out of place, like what you're saying logistically, because we just saw her walking, and then nothing was there. It was bare, and then like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where did they come from? You know? So yeah, it was kind of weird. But yeah, then he gets into the second lesson. I forget what the second lesson was though. You guys remember what the second lesson was?
Not at all. Like, did he teach her anything worth knowing? Like, I'm trying to figure out what lesson. Like,
oh my god, I really don't remember the second lesson.
When she's practicing with her staff, and then
she kind of just did that, didn't she? Though, like he had nothing.
But she did it on her own, though.
He had nothing to do with that.
I'll be honest, I couldn't remember the second or third lessons.
Yeah, I can't. But I know where they lead to. So I know. Yeah, I know that what it led to was him finally explaining what
she
had
asked
happened.
him. She's like, did you do it, or did you create Kylo?
No, that was a little bit later. That was a little bit later. That's later.
Okay, I don't get it.
She talked with Kylo when they held hands.
No, but okay. Well, he told her like part of the story then, like a little bit.
Right, because the first one was his like just the
the first one was his.
Then it was Kylo, and then it was him again saying, "Okay, here's the whole full truth."
All right.
Yeah.
Regardless, the minutiae of it aren't important. It's just the beats that we need to get to them.
Right. It's okay. As long as we talk about it, it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, the first time we see what he did, and this is for me the first time they were giving me the opportunity to explain to me why Luke's the way he is, and all they give me is Luke saying, "I felt this great darkness in him." Not that he had done anything like bad. He didn't like go killing Tusken Raiders or going on.
He didn't have any intentions. He didn't even have any intentions to do anything. Like
he was sleeping on his cot. I mean, from visually, what I got, he was sleeping on his cot, innocent. Like it's not enough for me to do what they did with Luke and get me to side with that mentality. And just give me, I felt this great darkness. Like that's not enough for me. Like I don't trust this unreliable Luke to say that. And I'm like, yeah, you felt darkness in him. I understand why you changed your mentality entirely and didn't think to try and save him or teach him to be a better person.
It doesn't work in any sense because it's not just Luke here. If it had been any Jedi, hell, any character in the way it was presented here, we would not feel sympathy or anything. It was just because of what is happening right now. It was a purely terrible situation, even before they're giving us the full information in the next tellings. But the fact that it's Luke, the fact that it's a Jedi, it just amplifies the problem. And like you said, the little shots they give us nothing. It's like, well, what are we seeing right now? And the hut is collapsing, and and he's unconscious. And it's like, how did that happen? What? And then the temple is burning. Still no Knights of Ren as well. It's like, what?
I just want to say,
the Knights of Ren are.
I don't even care about like the Knights of Ren. Like I just I as somebody, Kylo Ren really failed to like arrive for me in The Force Awakens. I didn't get him. I didn't get how he wound up where he was. Didn't get what he wanted. The only thing I got out of these scenes was like a tiny tidbit of like, oh, I kind of get why he's on the dark side now. Like if that's the way you did it. Like I mean, that's all I got was a little sympathy for him. It was like, oh, that's messed up. I'd be switching sides too. Like he was just like hovering over you with like ready to murder you in your sleep one day. That's terrible. Fuck the Jedi. Like
you would never trust that man ever again.
No, you wouldn't.
No. And I want to get into that. Like I get that we'll go somewhere like more in depth with maybe the different versions of this. That's the only interesting idea here, was the idea of playing with perspective. I like that. The execution of it was as terrible as could be for the reasons you've already said. I don't need to go over that again. There's something to be said for that idea of Luke was trying to do something. Kylo witnessed it at the wrong time in the wrong way, and in his mind it was like, okay, I'm turning against him. That's something that they could have gone, like, they have to rewrite the hell out of it, but like that could have gone somewhere. How they did it, it was terrible, like, again, for the reasons you're saying, and because it's Luke Skywalker. Like, man, you redeemed Darth Vader. This kid hasn't done anything, and like, you're like not even gonna try. I mean, you redeemed Darth Vader. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just it's absolutely wrong. Anyway, I'm done. Go ahead, Evan. You're fine.
I'm just piggybacking off with you. The thing, like, this scene actually is kind of what really like hammered it in for me that this is not Luke Skywalker, because here's the thing. He even says it, like, he's holding the lightsaber and he ignites it, and he's like saying, as quick as it passed through my head, it went away. And I'm like, the fact that was in your head for even a moment, that you even, for the briefest of moments, like a Planck instant, considered doing that, you've officially just lost me. Like, no.
It wasn't even an instant, because he pulls the trigger. I mean, it's not just like I wonder. No, it's okay, I'm doing it. Oh, wait, no, bad move. It's like, what? How is this a thing? It's like, this is mind-bogglingly terrible.
The fact that he even considered it is, like, so fundamentally wrong. Like, that, I think that was the moment, like, I lost complete, like, hope for this character. Like, what? Just think about it for a second. Like, the ramifications. Like, just... Like, seriously, like, I can't understand.
I don't get.
I ask again. Who wrote this?
Like, family ties,
Ryan Johnson wrote it.
You wrote this?
It's like,
he wrote it and directed it. Yeah.
I don't get how this isn't the thing that everyone is talking about coming out of this movie. Like, people who are hardcore fans of the originals, they must be insulted by this. Even who know nothing else about the character from any of the EU stuff, just the films, they should be insulted by what they've given here.
Yeah, many casual fans are just like, oh, that's a very... And again, okay, this is a criticism I have of people
I know where you're going here. Yeah.
Give praise for... Different. Yeah, bold and different. As if there is merit in just being bold and different without the proper execution. And that's what a lot of the reviewers and critics are saying right now, is like, oh, man, like, I never thought Luke could go there. That's such an interesting, like, idea for Luke. I mean, sure, yeah, you're right. It is an interesting idea for Luke, and it'd be interesting to figure out how he got there. The way in which he did and the way in which it was presented, no. Like, it was just no. And the fact that people are like putting it on there is just like, but it's bold and different. Didn't you guys want bold and different? It's like,
it's bold
just
and
because
different.
something will get you talking doesn't mean you should necessarily do it.
Well, it's bold and different and unexpected, because no one would ever expect this, because it's entirely out of character, which makes it bad. Like, that's like, I mean, it's very simple. It's like a very simple equation here. Like, you don't need to do all kinds of calculus to figure this one out. It's ridiculous.
And it's just so annoying because, like you said, Matt,
it's like Superman snapping someone's neck. Oh wait.
Or Batman using guns. But yeah, Matt, you're right. The worst part about it is that, yes, it's built on an idea that could have been good. You know, this trilogy could have been about the confusion of perspective between Luke and Ren.
I loved that idea.
Yeah, and how Rey could have been the one that brought the perspectives together. You know, not being on both sides, but having the interaction between both. That could have been the trilogy, the entire story that was being told. And instead, it's this one scene insanely done in this middle film that shouldn't be a finale. It's just, it doesn't make any sense on any level.
The fact that you even called this a trilogy, like, we have so much to talk about, but it's like there's nothing cohesive about this.
We're not even through it yet.
Yeah, no, we've not got to the plot side properly. So
to do a little bit of segue, we were talking about how this affected Kylo, so we can go into the first scene we have with Kylo and Snoke. What do you guys feel about Snoke before things happen?
Oh my god.
Oh boy.
All right, let's just organize this and not talk about
so at the beginning,
thing until, like,
before we figured all that out. I was in
the mindset of trying to give them rope here and see where you're going with this character. In that scene, I don't understand why they got somebody as talented as Andy Serkis to do mocap for this guy that just, I don't really like the way he looks. I don't know why they spent money on this. But what he was doing, some of the things he was saying, the way he was saying it, I enjoyed the presentation of that scene for the most part, and it got my hopes up. And we'll talk about what happened to my hopes later. I think that we'll all be having a similar opinion. But in any case, like, and I've never been caught up in, oh, he's this character that like I know from something else. I knew he was going to be his own character, or I believed he was going to be. But I enjoyed just the interplay between them. I'm not quite sure what he was hoping to accomplish by just berating all of his allies, because it wasn't just him. It started with Hux. But I mean, he was just like talking down to everybody. I don't know if that was like a deliberate callback to Vader choking everyone in Empire, but whatever. Like, I enjoyed that particular scene.
I liked most about Snoke is his effect on Kylo. No, I mean, he was cool. Like you were saying, like he visually he was interesting. The performance was there, but my takeaway from him was just how he affected Kylo, and specifically like in the scene after when he's in the or I like the one part, like the one line says like, take that ridiculous thing off, because that's what I was saying in The Force Awakens. He's using this mask to be Vader. You know what I mean? He's trying to be this thing he's not. And then I like that he brought that up. You're like, dude, take that off. Like, what are you doing? Like, let me see.
But at the same time, Snoke's kind of like a Vader fanboy in this film, though. Like, so I mean, it's weird. Like,
oh, yeah, he was like putting his power on a pedestal and stuff like that.
Anyway, like, I get what you're saying.
I got to get into too about Kylo and what's so special about him and his power, because Snoke was doing much more impressive things, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I like the
not a giant, by the way.
Oh, you're not a giant.
No, just a guy in a golden bath for whatever reason.
I'm just happy he wasn't this big instead, because that's what I was in fear of my number. Like,
Hugh
he's going to be this big. Like,
size matters not.
Yeah.
But
but in the elevator, I liked how, seeing like Kylo have his rage and like breaking the mask, and like I do like the theme that they brought up about letting go of your past, because I did like that through line between Rey and Kylo thematically, and some of the execution based in those two's performance, not maybe the overall execution of the letting go of the past. But yeah, I like that aspect. Sorry, Reddy, I know you were going.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, I feel, one, that the most of the power from that scene and the entire situation between Ren and Snoke as well was actor. The acting from Ren was fantastic in those scenes. You looked at him and you got where he was coming from there. Even if the writing was telling the exact opposite, you felt what it was supposed to be doing. But the thing about the elevator scene when he's smashing the mask, that's the first time I've enjoyed him raging. Like, I felt like that was the time when,
right, because it was motivated.
Yeah, it had emotional weight behind it. You knew why it was happening. It's clearly something that's been building up in him. That was untapped rage just overflowing. It would have been a lot more powerful if he hadn't been throwing tantrums in the first film, and this is when we first see him lose control. It would have had so much power behind it. And I'm not saying it was, it was completely fell flat on its face as a result, but it would have been so much more if they'd thought about this. It goes back to them not really having a clear plan for the through line between the films.
So that's what Matt was saying, is that he had nothing, he didn't care for Kylo, and in this he says he actually got something.
He was really underwritten in the first one for me. He had no discernible motivation to be the way he was, from what I could tell in the first one. This time, I was kind of like Team Kylo throughout the movie. Like,
honestly, I was too. To be honest,
like, I mean, like, I'm serious. Like, I mean, I just I couldn't relate to anybody but him. Like, after a point, and even like when Luke comes in and tells his version of the story, and Snoke's being, I hate everybody, and it's just thumbs down, like, unsubscribe, Team Kylo. Like, I'm over there, I just had no anchor except for him. He was the only person that was behaving in a way that seemed even remotely human,
or
like in terms of like that, consistent as well. Yeah. I mean, we I don't know how deep we want to get into the Snoke discussion. Like, what are we talking about? What's the topic right now?
Well, I mean, the next lead in would probably be, because that does Kylo stuff leads into the Resistance, so we can talk about that if you guys are down for that, because we have been leaving the Resistance out.
Yeah, we've kind of left the plot behind a long time ago. Yeah, so for the ship central tension of
ship
the film
gets attacked.
blows my mind. This isn't just a nitpick this time. The ship naval combat scenario they're setting up, it isn't just a nitpick and like, oh, that wouldn't be how it plays out, because it not only wouldn't be how it plays out, but that's what they're depending, the tension of the film, the entire plot is riding on the fact that this scenario has to make sense to have weight, and it doesn't. This breaks every rule that we've seen in Star Wars from day one. If the naval combat is just a case of the fastest ship turns around and runs away, infinite shields keeping it up for 18 hours, it's like, why is that something that doesn't happen every 5 minutes? How are we supposed to take this seriously? I mean, it blows my mind. And then the fact that they have the ability to just leave and then come back, like they somehow managed to find someone, the best hacker in the galaxy, like less than 5 hours away, because they've got to get there, get back, get there, find him, get back. Like, how are we supposed to take this scenario seriously? It really bugged me.
Because somebody, said that, like, okay, the Empire like scenario, we have to keep the good guys constantly on the run from the evil Empire, like in that. So like they took like that basic framework, and then this was the best they could come up with. It's like they don't even want you to think too hard about it, because there's like a technobabble aspect where Rose and Finn are like explaining the mechanics of how it's working, and they're like interrupting each other. It's like a subconscious way of telling the audience, none of what we're saying matters. Don't worry, just follow us on this adventure. Like, because it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
Yeah, it wasn't even just garbled words. The logic they were following didn't fit. The character's knowledge, or the knowledge we have of the universe, is like, why, what, how you, what's going on right now? And this is introduction of Rose, this character we're supposed to care about.
But this is like, this is them actually leaving is like after like the actual devastating attack, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about that.
It's easy to forget.
Well, first we have to get into, because the attack itself is when Kylo has his little moment with Leia, and they had like that whole flash. I like the flashes they did, because that was very reminiscent of Luke and Vader in Empire, and getting that connection, and also getting that Kylo isn't like completely heartless. And I think also when we get the motivation from a little bit later about why he killed Han, is because he felt like Han wasn't really there for him, or at least the sense I got is that Han wasn't there for him as the way Leia was, at least in the fact in how he killed Han and like didn't spare Leia. But some people had issue with the when she her and Spark,
Mary Poppins.
Oh wait, no.
I
just jumped the gun.
I thought it was actually very, very beautiful for me personally, and it might have been me bringing in the outside world scenario that was seeing not just Leia but Carrie Fisher dead and then kind of resurrected with the Force. I know people didn't like the aesthetic of like her coming back and like it looked like Mary Poppins, but I just thought it was very beautiful for me personally.
I have like a note. I said it was amazing as it was terrible. I love the concept of it. That it's to me it's mainly the way they shot it, or the way that she was harnessed, or whatever the effect was. Like her position to me is like awkward and just I don't like the way it looks at all. I do like the fact that she wasn't dead, because like when she got sucked out into space, it's like, you motherfuckers, like I can't have anything in this movie, can I? Like, you're taking everything from me. Like, this is too like, just like there's no joy here. Like, I'm done because they just killed Han. I thought she was dead. Like, I was ready to say bye-bye, like Leia, so that was like, oh man. And then it showed her icy corpse. I thought, oh, this is in bad taste, I don't want to see this. And then it's like, oh no, she's like alive. But then it was like this whiplash again. Like I loved that she wasn't dead. I loved she was actually using the Force like in a big way for like the first time. But it was just something about the way it was framed. It was like, could we have shot this in a way that didn't look so cheap and weird?
I have the same opinion.
The weird part of it is that.
Sorry, you go first, Evan. You go first.
No, the weird part of it is though, it's like Star Wars, especially in these last few years, has kind of played fast and loose with how people react when they're exposed to hard vacuum. And like I distinctly remember a fan once asking Dave Filoni why Kanan didn't just like erupt into bits when he got shoved into the vacuum in Rebels. And I distinctly remember him saying that, well, in that universe, space doesn't work the same way. And I'm like, well,
I mean, it's fine. It's a science fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just like saying I'm surprised that carried over.
They didn't keep consistency in the own film though, with the way the X-wings maneuvered, or the bombers in that the bottom of the bombers were open World War II style and no one was dying inside the ship. But regardless of that, that's nitpicky stuff. The problem I had with
if anything, that makes it consistent with the fantasy that they did have these bombers with open bottoms and they were kind of in space, so it's like, okay, that's your fantasy, like that's their world, that's their rule.
Yeah, but then you've got the prequels where they have very obvious ray shielding across the vacuum of space for that very reason, to make it kind of it doesn't matter, it's a nitpick, but it's just the consistency wasn't there as with everything in the film. But the two things that bugged me about this scene, I share the same opinion with you on it, Matt. The way it was shot and the way it was, the idea was good, the execution was poor for me, but the things that undercut it for me was, one, we have no explanation for how Leia's using the Force. I mean, she's a Skywalker, of course, but we have no explanation of how that developed, which kind of needs to be done.
I rewrote it. I rewrote it in my head to try to make sense of it.
Yeah, based
I
on
don't think you needed it. I think I mean, she knows the Force. I don't think you need an overt like, oh, she learned this specific ability to like be able to do
I don't mean to
this.
go like textbook style, but just something like a single line of what you
It
think.
is-
Thought Luke didn't teach me anything? Simple line like that.
I do agree. Yeah, that's cool. I do agree that there was a gap because when she did come back, everyone looked like, oh, we all knew that already.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
knew she could
And
do that. Like
that's the thing that bugs
someone
me.
should have been surprised.
The next thing that
but
bugs
there
me,
was
the more
a-
important thing is, we just lost the entire bridge crew. The entire leadership of the Alliance is gone, and you've undercut it by everyone's like, it's all fine. Is it, Akbar was there. I didn't know that until they mentioned it after the fact. We just lost Admiral Akbar.
He wasn't in character though. But I mean, like, so he was there in name only. But no, like I do think that there's something to be said about people complaining about it because it to me it would be kind of weird if people were like just okay with her doing like one of the most extreme Force things ever on film, like just keeping alive in space. Relative to like the same people might also complain about Rey just doing shit, like so I get like people like why can she just do this then, and in my head, that well maybe you don't, but like in the teaser trailer I think it's like Luke is going breathe, like just breathe. I would have had that be like him helping her, like calling to her, like sensing her peril or whatever, and like trying to give her the guidance to like do what she's doing because it does make no sense like that she can just do that. It's kind of cheap. It's like a fake out. Like, we didn't kill her, but she can get away with it because she's Leia or Anakin's daughter, whatever. But it is kind of cheap shot. If we're gonna hold Rey to the standard that why can she just do everything, which I have been doing.
It could have been a moment of connection between Rey and Luke as well. She senses that he's doing something. He's just off quietly in the background while she's like meditating or practicing something he's put to task to, and then he has this moment and she senses it and is like, "What was that?" Just a moment like that. It would have been a real believable moment, and Luke's reaction alone, because he's going to be kind of traumatized by that if that had happened. There's so much they missed opportunity in that entire scene, and again we lost. I know it's kind of a joke for Akbar, but knowing the character that he is in all of the expanded works and how they just threw him away, literally threw him away, it's just
they
He's in,
like
like,
throw him
2
away,
scenes.
like,
He's in, like,
with
2
no ceremony
scenes,
at
that's
all.
it.
yeah. As
Like,
we
if
know,
you-
the chain of command is quite clear on this. It will be this new person that will now take up over the Admiral Akbar, who, by the way, was there and taken out by 2 bloody missiles from a fighter, not even a bomber, who should not have been able to pierce the shields that were holding up against an entire cruiser, but never mind.
Yeah, that also was inconsistent as well. But yeah, to move on, so the next through line is she drops the binary. What do they call it? The binary reader.
Who cares?
Yep.
Yeah,
Whatever.
they made
It was
some
completely
mumbling
irrelevant. They didn't even go
that
back to it
Finn
later.
took. And then Finn. No, they never even brought it up ever again. That's
Never
true.
they kept showing it, but they never showed us actually. Oh, let's
yeah, but
follow
they
this
never
thing
actually
back to
showed
the
the payoff
fate.
for it.
Never again. Completely pointless
that's so
MacGuffin.
But yeah, so that enters us into the Finn and Rose storyline. What did you guys feel about their? I guess the initial phase, because we're just talking about the initial.
I know it's more
Just it.
character stuff, but I would like to mention here. I like both characters. I like pretty much every character in these entire new films, actually. But the thing is, I like the personalities we're given, because we don't get anything beyond that for anyone outside of Ren
Right.
in this film. They're all just base personalities.
I really liked her in particular because again, like this is such like a dismal galaxy, and like she was like a ray of light coming in here, and I enjoyed her as a person. I don't. If you guys want to get into like more character discussion, that's fine. I don't mean to derail this. I just want to say that everything that they have her do, I would have cut that entire plot line.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
just want to say that right now. They had no business going to the casino planet.
And Finn too. I think they didn't really know what to do with Finn as well, which is why he got kind of sandwiched with Rose. I think they just kind of like, what should we do? I mean, he's in the other film, and maybe what is he gonna do?
That's the
And I feel like a lot
problem.
of your storylines were shoehorned, and even getting into the ending, how his like kind of arc concludes. Well, not the very end, because the very end I actually kind of liked, but the Phasma stuff, basically.
Oh boy.
But this is the core problem though. All of the characters, we get a face, and then only Ren gets a little development in this film. Every other character is a face. We know like they're nice people. They're good at everything they try, pretty much, but particularly Rey. And that's basically it. They have maybe one point that they're trying to deal with, and it doesn't work for this.
I liked that Rose was sisters with the woman who died in the beginning.
Yeah,
Because like that,
I like that.
that loss sort of
Through
like
line.
became like an anchor, like a through line that gave like it suited the theme of the movie of like and just like how harried and hounded like this what are they called, the resistance
Resistance, yeah.
Resistance,
like
yeah.
like just like the situation they're in, and it made it more personal because you could put faces on it and you could see like the loss that it happened like with his family, and there was her sister and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed. She was like my favorite new character, I guess. Like she's a new character, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't
Yeah,
read any novels
she's
or anything
completely
like
new, yeah.
but anyway, I I don't know how to even approach this like going forward. Are we still
Right.
talking? I mean,
Let's go
So-
because I
so-
think that is the weakest storyline. We can go over that really quickly. The Canto Bite and Finn.
even
Yeah.
e-
And
even
the-
just the reason they have to do that, because they have like Maz on speed dial, but she's like, no, I'm busy, I can't help.
Well, she was going
because
through a
CGI
union
is
dispute
expensive.
that, no.
Union
The
dispute.
reasoning is that she was in a union dispute and they were having a firefight.
I-
And she's like, I got
no,
to do this, yeah.
You're right, but did that not seem ridiculous?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I mean, she can't help because she's having like, unless I get that that's kind of like both a true and a joke, but it just, what's more important here?
I mean, bear
I
in
know how
mind
big
that,
the resistance that's about to like die.
yeah, bear in mind
I
that
mean,
this resistance
it's
of
just-
4 ships is being crushed and is the last hope for the entire of the galaxy's stability. Not that we have any clue what's going on in the galaxy, and this is our last hope. Sorry, I'm having a union dispute. Let's have a joke about it. And it's like,
I was, and she's
Again,
again,
it kind of undercuts the tone.
yeah, it's a tonal thing.
tone, right? Like, and
Yeah.
the this happens like immediately after the last film, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's immediately, like minutes.
Why didn't she ask what happened to Han? Like, there's nobody like.
Oh yeah, she doesn't know.
Like,
yeah.
You've got-
I hated that. Like, I'm just the lack of like emotional resonance there is like, your one scene was like being cool with Han and like, you know, introducing yourself to the crew and like explaining people like what the setting is, and she's like, I'm in a labor dispute. Can't help. But you know who can? Some guy at a casino. Go find him. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
That's
it's like, what?
ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad MacGuffin. Pretty bad.
But you touch on a point there, though, that there's no connection between any of the characters. Finn has a connection to Rey, but that's about it. Oh, and Poe, I guess Finn does. But Poe, apart from Finn's connection to Poe and Rey, do any of the characters know any of the other characters to any degree? This is not an ensemble
No,
cast.
because that's even a thing that happens at the end when Poe introduces
Yeah,
himself
when
to Rey.
Poe introduced
Yeah.
himself to Rey.
It's
And
like,
they're like,
are we
like
really
pretty
2
main
films
characters
in?
this series.
I actually didn't realize they hadn't met before that.
They hadn't?
That was
Yeah.
that was completely
yeah.
out of my scope. I had no idea that was so until they introduced
Well, hey,
each other.
At least it's not as bad as when Leia and Rey hugged at the end of Force Awakens.
So,
Which
hello,
again
old
was
person,
something
who are you?
I didn't actually even. Antoine's the one connected that dot for me. I didn't realize they hadn't met up to that point. I just didn't.
And ignoring Chewie in that same moment. I mean, it's just that none of the characters have anything to do with any of the other characters, so why should we care about their relationships?
Yeah, let's get through Canto Bite really quickly because it just was like even for people who did enjoy this movie and say they love it, that's what they also agree that they like. That's the weakest part of this movie for sure. Yeah.
I hope you like very obvious social commentary.
Yeah,
Oh,
it totally is. And yeah, again, I like what they were.
And why
for
though?
what
Like-
they were going for, but
But like, why in this context? You know, and
Right.
and
it was adding another
And the-
theme that didn't need to muddle the rest of what we were already doing.
had
with.
nothing to do with the story. Again, since we don't want to dwell on this, I just want to say, so they got there, like actually didn't find the guy they were looking for, got thrown
Yeah.
in the brig, and just happened to meet Benicio del Toro, who just happened to know what they needed to know. That's
Correct.
what
Yes.
happened here.
Which,
Right,
by
I
the
just wanted
way,
to-
in the
I
lore,
just
they've
wanted to get
bigged
that
up to
straight.
no end. Like, they make that thing a really big deal that the people can hack that. And he just happens to be able to also do it for some reason. Why did they big it up if they were going to do it that way?
I mean, I don't even have to. I have no comments for just how ill-conceived that is. But his character frustrated me as well. Like he's
DJ,
like,
yeah.
stuttering pointlessly. Like I mean, it's like somebody saw The Usual Suspects, was like, hey, do that thing that you do where you're like unintelligible in this role and just, you know, no one cares about your dialogue. It was so stupid. And I've heard people praise the moment when he points out that like the same profiteers are like selling weapons to both sides, and he says that to Finn, like, oh, this guy got rich selling to like
the good
First
guys
Order.
and the bad guys.
The good and the bad, yeah.
I go, and people are like, oh, that's so interesting. What, this movie's deep. And I go, what does that have to do with anything in the rest of this movie?
It's a good
And it
moment
has-
on its own in a vacuum, but I agree that it doesn't tie.
thematically, Yeah, thematically has nothing to do with this story nor the person he's talking to. Finn is not the person who's going to do anything with that information. Like it's
Well,
not going to change
What
it at all.
no, because what he says is that it's better not to join. It's better just to be free. And that's kind of what they were alluding to with even though it wasn't making sense because he wasn't deserting.
Right, it doesn't play because
he wasn't deserting.
He's already been on that arc. Like I'm kind of done with Finn the coward. Like he's more resolute in just who he is. So it's at the wrong time. Like if you were going to do this, put it back in the other film, like in the first one. It just has no business here whatsoever.
Right.
The entire thing was a Rebels story, if you ask me. The entire Cantabina thing is just it should have been an episode in one of the Rebels series.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say that it feels like a filler episode on a TV show. Like, that's what it felt
not
like.
a particularly good one at that, but it's just, it doesn't fit. Right. And again, it's not only is it terrible, it's undercutting the tension of the film as well. The central tension is they need to get back to save the ship. And meanwhile, let's sit here and just talk about how this is so unfair. And look around. Look, all these people, they got
you guys
rich off
had to be
selling
looking
weapons.
for the guy.
It's like, you are literally wasting hundreds of thousands of lives just with this stupid conversation. It's like, can we move along, please? Yeah. What's happening here? Oh, let's free the
and then
the
there's
slave
the scene with
creatures.
the animals too.
Yeah, the animals.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I thought when we were in that scene and they were like, racing, whatever. I was like, you know what? If this was like in different context and this was like Harry Potter, this would be like kind of like a cool little whimsical sequence. But I was like, here it just doesn't fit. Like, it kind of reminded me of the Hippogriff scene a little bit when Hermione was like scared about like flying or whatever, and Harry's like having a good old jolly time, and Finn saying like, stop enjoying this. I was like, maybe in a different context I would really like find this scene kind of charming, but it just wasn't.
If nothing else, if you had more time.
Goes back to the inconsistent tone that this movie is trying to portray.
And it was wasted time. It was wasted time.
If it was a different story, if they had time to tell it, fine. If this was a book, fine. But it's not. It's a film. You're wasting minutes of it on this.
It's like that's why I wonder, like, who's in charge of how they budget what time for what storyline? Why is this story being told right now? Like, I mean, it just doesn't track.
It was also a very open attempt to sell toys, that entire sequence. Right down to the damn ring, which was like, oh god, that was made to be a toy. And the kids,
yeah,
and
why are
the
they...
and the animals and the robots and what is happening here? Oh, and look, the BB-8 launching the coin guns. It's like, oh god, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that got a little laugh from the audience, but yeah, it was like, okay.
So, okay, BB-8 can do all of this, can he?
It's a funny thing is like, people laughed like a lot in my theater, but there were certain things that were supposed to be funny that like were complete like flatline, and that was one of them. No one gave a fuck about the drunk midget who was trying to put like coins in him. Like that moment just seemed not to end in my theater. It was like, can we please stop? This is painful.
That was a moment that would have been put in the original the originals special edition. That was one of those moments.
Edit. That's a cutting room floor scene. Like. Edit.
Like, one of the lead scenes, BB-8 ran into a midget. But let's move on from that. I think
so they escape Canto Bight
about Canto Bight. No, okay, good. So yeah, they escape. Well, let me see. What should we cover that we haven't?
Well,
okay, we already. Okay, let's do the Poe stuff because I feel like that I thought was one of the more stronger things, like his conflict with. You said you knew the name, but we call her Purple Lady. Me and Matt call her Purple Lady.
Oh yeah.
Emmeline
the lady from Jurassic Park.
Holdo.
Yeah, Dr. Sadler. I know her other character's name.
Emmeline Holdo, I think, Vice Admiral.
Oh, that's how I knew her. That bugged me the whole movie, especially the way she like moved her lips and like smiled. I was like, I know that lips. I know those lips.
For me, the entire idea was the strongest single storyline in the film, outside of the Ren stuff, obviously.
Right.
But the execution for me was just failed at every turn. Like
I actually thought it was executed pretty well as well.
I couldn't tell. Like these are not officers for one. These are not. This military situation makes no sense. And I'm not saying that just to be nitpicky. For this to make sense, they have to get the whole idea across. And there's no weight to it.
I had issues with this, but it was more like notes, things I would have changed. I like the concept of what's going on here, especially again because of Poe, like his frustration. Like you're seeing this through like his perspective. That's part of like what the note is though, is because it's kind of a fake out for the sake of drama. She pulls rank on him. It's just like, you don't need to know. Like, you just shut up. Like,
you got demoted.
That's for drama. Like, that's for us to be like, oh, now they have an issue, and like Poe's got to save the day because she's incompetent or coward or both, and she's fucking everything up. She could have taken him aside and said, like, look, this is what I'm planning. Why didn't she do that? Because we have a story to tell. We have drama to manufacture. So there's things that I thought didn't feel quite organic. Having said that, it is the strongest singular plot thread that we're dealing with.
I
here.
agree. Like
Which
in
says a lot
terms of
about the
just
film.
from A to B to C, it worked really well.
And as somebody, apparently she's in a book, a Leia book or something like it, but I didn't know that until I listened to like other people's reviews of this after I saw the thing. So
she's supposed
I
to
had
be
no idea
a
who she was.
lesbian character, something like that.
Okay. I didn't know her. Didn't know she was coming here. I came in blind to this, especially with regard to her. She was somebody that I bought as that character who comes in and messes everything up by pulling rank and just taking us off course or whatever. And I was really satisfied that they turned her into a character I gave a damn about and somebody who was useful. That was my expectations were so low by that point. That I was just glad they were doing something interesting and well conceived. To be honest,
the idea and the framework for what was supposed to be happening was there for this one, and I like what they did with the character in the end. But the thing is, the character she's at the end would not be making the mistakes she does at the start. It's like you said, it's manufactured for drama, and I do not like that. The consistency and everything's off there.
And also I agree with like her appearance. I wasn't sure what she was because she is just like a purple-haired lady in a dress. She looks like a preschool teacher or something. Like I didn't know that she was like
Vice Admiral.
A person, right? Yeah, like it took a while
and that's
for me
kind
to
of the
figure
same thing.
this
You
out.
actually are in the same wavelength that Poe is, because I think they say like she establishes like that's like the blah 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 from the Cairo battle or whatever. And he's like, how would I expect it or whatever, Like I think he expected her to be more hardened and like maybe have some scars or something like that, and be
maybe
like,
wearing a uniform, military officer.
Yeah, maybe
style.
wearing a uniform. It's true. She was very very casual.
It's like, how are you supposed to take this officer course seriously if they're not acting how they would be, or doing what they would be, or talking how they would be, or doing the manufactured drama? It takes everything from the believability, and then undercuts the emotional payoff at the end. But
I did like Oscar's performance, especially during like I think his outburst he had, where he's like, "No, like you're not the commander anymore. Like I'm taking over right now." Like
you definitely see where he's coming from.
His performance was great.
Yeah.
Performances in general were great for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Acting was all strong.
Honestly, no one felt off to me, except maybe Del Toro to a degree, but that could just be how he's written.
Yeah, I think that was. I don't know if it was a direction issue or what, but I just didn't like that character. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, all of the acting was extremely good, and even despite the writing, like there were scenes where if it had been anyone else, I would have thought this is terrible, and they still managed to pull it off despite that, which is really impressive. But yeah, the writing and the characters themselves is just poorly done for me on almost every level.
So we had Cantabite and we have the Poe Resistance. So then we go back to Rey and Kylo, and this is when they're starting to get more into each other. And I don't mean that. I mean there could be romance there or whatever, but I don't mean that romantic. I just mean like they understand each other a little bit more, and that's when we get the second story with Kylo, his perspective of like, hey, this guy totally tried to kill me, and I'm like, fuck the Jedi,
Yeah.
And then Rey going like, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of fucked up, man. I kind of understand. Oh, but also like before that, they had a scene about why did you do what you did or whatever, and like you had a father who gave a damn about you, and I didn't have parents growing up. I like that little connect that they had there as well. I thought that was very genuine, especially again those performances. I felt like really felt like they're connecting on something right there.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I like, especially because she had befriended Han, and it's like, how could you kill him? Or like you had a father that you threw away. Like you threw away like what I've always been chasing after, and like what I even might have found in him. Like you took him away from me as well. But like, why do you forsake that? That's why I couldn't relate to the dude in the first one, Kylo, because it's like I didn't know what he hated his father for. He even says in this movie, I didn't hate him, but whatever. I mean, I don't know where we want to. I don't want to fast forward to the actual vision, but just the fact.
We can. We're in vision time right now. We're in vision.
Okay, just vision. The imagery of like crazy Luke, like that's up there with like the Harry. Did you put your name in the goblet of fire? Like,
my God, yes. I didn't think about that. Yeah,
that was like so like what? I mean, I get that that's his perspective. I get it stylized in that. It's still something I was like, I wish I had never seen. Like that was just so wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway. I didn't mean to take us there. We can go wherever you want now. I'm done with
No, that's fine. That's kind of what,
right.
I liked their connection there. And then at the end of, I forget what happens at the second vision before she gets the truth from. Yeah, because she's freaking out and it's raining. Oh yeah, that's right. They had the fight. And she's like, "Is it true? You create color."
Blasts away the hut. Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, you forgot. I forgot too.
Yeah, but
Touch
before
hands.
that even happens, she goes into the cave area because she's
Yeah.
doing a voiceover. It's like I knew like it's about like her parents and like who they were and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
Which I
dark
actually
side.
like that. I think visually that was really cool. Like having
I agree.
the
I agree.
lineup
Oh, it's
of everything and
very interesting. The snap.
yeah,
That's
It was
what I'm
another
saying,
one of
like,
those things how
there's-
it kept engaging you.
Right, I was just gonna say
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
lots of different
Yeah,
methods they
it's
could
all these
use.
things.
It didn't
like-
make much literary sense, but because of how well it was done in the execution and how it kind of fit Rey. Again, so much brought to this film from the acting. I cannot give them props enough. I don't even know what they're really doing. I just buy their performances, even in the ludicrous scenarios they're in. But it was a cool kind of unique idea to get across that we haven't seen as well. What I do want to know though is why was the dark side showing her that?
the dark side. What?
Why was the dark side showing her that?
Well, it's kind of like she's searching for something in particular, and part of the dark side is like it's offering you something in exchange
Yeah, but what did
for
it
that.
I
offer
think
her?
that
So
kind of
it's
stuff-
it's
I-
temptation.
I-
That's what it is.
Yeah,
I think
but-
that kind of stuff is better left not overly explained personally.
Oh no, I don't mean
You
that they
know.
needed
Okay.
to explain it, as in they didn't tell us or anything. I'm saying what did we get out of it? She goes into the hole, she's looking after the dark side, and the dark side basically turns her away. Either she solves it automatically because she's too pure, or the dark side just says no, there's nothing for you here. Why would the dark side do that? I don't get
Because what
the-
it did is that it showed her face instead of her parents, which that seems more like a light side thing. It's
Yeah,
like, hey, you
precisely.
don't have let go of your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very light side thing. Not
That's
a
why I
dark
was
side thing.
confused. I thought there was the disconnect between where was the darkness there. I mean, yeah, she goes. I mean, the implication is that she was in there for a very long time because, like, can you imagine doing that same thing over and over again, like for however long she was there? But
Right.
and it was the kind of claustrophobic sense as she describes it and such. But there was no darkness for me there. It didn't ring true on that level.
It wasn't the same as like Luke finding out that Vader, like, he could become Vader, that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, in watching it, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that totally was not an evil thing. Like, nothing was like.
But I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not even sure if it was it supposed to be, because I didn't really get the sense that she was doing wrong by even being exploring it. It just
By
looked
being
like
there.
she was caught in the throes of something.
based
Yeah.
on Luke telling her not to go
Yeah,
there.
his
that's
reaction as
the reason
well.
Why we're
Oh, yeah,
supposed
but-
to think, yeah.
But he's off his rocker. I mean, I
Right,
don't know
right,
what
right,
he
right.
even is talking about. So I mean, all right, I'll table that. I'll excuse myself from that conversation. I apologize. I don't want to get into.
I was doing the same thing when I was doing my talk about Luke. I always went back and just kept going. But
Yeah.
I think we established.
Yeah. But I like the moment though.
But
I
we
felt
can
that
talk about Luke
disconnect,
now
that was
because
all.
that's what. Okay, we got to the point where she confronts him and goes like, "Is it true? Were you the reason, or did you create Kylo Ren?" And then they have the full truth, which is supposed to be the full truth. And then I think we already discussed this. That we talked about the fleeting moment, how we didn't think that thought should ever have been there.
Yeah.
And then the new thing that we can talk about will be their actual physical fight. What do you guys feel about that fight?
Ray and
The
Luke.
stick fight. Yeah, the stick fight.
Yeah.
It happened so quick. I don't even remember.
It was just kind of there, honestly. I thought it was okay, I guess.
I mean, he didn't fight back against her, which I was happy that he wasn't completely I'm gonna defeat you or whatever. I was happy that he, on some level, was doing something right by not attacking her like that. At that point, I was just happy for anything. Just make this guy somewhat human.
Yeah.
I don't really have thoughts about. To be honest, I don't have thoughts.
Yeah, me too.
about any of
The fight was kind of
to be
like
honest.
burp or derp.
Just kind of happened.
Yeah,
just hadn't happened.
it was one of the meh moments for me. But the thing it did undercut, though, because every single scene does something to undercut this film, was he immediately drew on the Force and pulled the stick from the building or whatever.
Which
it
at that
was.
point he said he wasn't.
Yeah, precisely.
part of the Force,
There
right?
should have been a
Yeah.
big the scene that we'll talk about later, but the Yoda scene that should have been about with a moment of much dramatic tension where he re-accepts the Force. That should have been a point for Luke in this film. He's come, regardless of how stupid it is that he threw it away in the first place. But it should have been a big deal, him recentering himself and rejoining the light and actually letting himself feel the Force again. That was just brushed over as this thing you can just turn on and off in your head. That is a big deal.
Yeah. I think also the storyline that we haven't really covered part of this is that oh my god, I was gonna say the whole thing where he says when I woke up, he burned the temple and then he killed half the students and took the other rest as the Knights of Ren, and then that kind of part I was like, oh, where are the Knights of Ren?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Where except for that flashback that the Rey had when she touched the saber, and we saw like a group of people around him. Like, are they the Knights of Ren? Like, it just seems so inconsistent, even within the context of their own lore, their own little canon they're doing now. Like, they don't even respect their own like lore or their rules that they're establishing.
Nope.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but are the words "the Knights of Ren"? Does that ever come up in the movie? Ever? I can't.
Yeah,
actually
it
It's
did.
mentioned in one of the crawls, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if
Is
it was
it?
mentioned
No,
in the
not
crawl, but
the
it was
crawl.
mentioned
I don't know.
it was mentioned in that scene where he said he Snoke talks about Knights of Ren. I believe Luke says he created the Knights of Ren or something like that.
No, he didn't.
Um,
Luke didn't say Knights of Ren. He just said he took some of his
Yeah,
students
handful of
with him, but he
Knights of
doesn't.
Then it must have been
actually call
Snoke. 'Cause I know Snoke's. I'm almost certain Snoke said something about the Knights of Ren.
He did
okay.
in The Force Awakens. Did he say it in this film?
I'm almost certain he did.
Okay.
I'm
I'll
almost
take
certain.
your word for it. I'll take your word for it.
I don't know for sure because again, I've only
Like,
seen it
I,
twice.
I
So.
felt like they forgot that even happened. Like, they're just like, that's
Yeah.
not a thing. Like, whatever. Like,
Just before we move on,
let's
sorry,
just say
because
something.
you reminded me a minute ago, Antoine. It's
Yeah, go.
it's an important point. With the perspective thing between Luke and Ren, again, as I said to earlier to Matt, I love the idea. One thing that bugged me though, especially at this point when we actually find out the truth, Luke not only did it and felt shame for it, but he then lied about it afterwards. I really did not like that. He lied
told her
to
a
make him
half-truth.
sound that as though, from a certain point of view, but it's just I do not like that he lied about it. It undercuts the idea of him having this remorse and this shame that it's supposed to be his big arc in this film, how he has failed as a master, and he's like, well, you're clearly still failing, so why should we care? It was a big part of it for me.
Right. And then I think after that, she's like, "All right, I'm out. Like, I'm done with Luke." Like, after all that.
Understandably.
Which I was too. I was with her. I was
Yeah.
like, no, literally from this point of Rey, and then she has like the face off with Kylo and their ideologies. I was like, kind of like, yeah, forget this guy. And then when we left the planet, and I was like, yeah, forget this guy, man. Like,
but
I'm out.
she even still, he was like, oh, he's terrible. And she was like, okay, well, then you take the lightsaber then. Like, do something about it. He was like, no. And so that's why she left. It was just like, okay, I can't do anything here. But yeah, I mean.
And then him say,
Luke,
like, this is
right?
not the way you think it will. Again, that same thing that it's beating. It's like, how do you think you cannot redeem this guy? You've been through the scenario with a much, like, deeply deranged
What did
person.
he do?
More
Like,
powerful
what
as
did you
well.
even? What did you even see him doing? Like,
He never
like,
saw
I mean,
anything except for a vision.
He
That's
felt
what I
he
mean,
felt
which
a
we
great
never
darkness.
see the vision.
He felt a great
Nothing.
I mean,
darkness.
you hear like screaming and shit, like as he's like sensing that. So it's like, do you have any insight, like even like tiny bit specific about like what you're seeing, Luke? Like, or is this just darkness? Because that's really lame.
And the
You
Luke
know.
Skywalker from Return of the Jedi would not get that vision and think, I've got to kill this boy.
In
He would have
his
been like, you
sleep,
know what? Let me
now."
figure out how to make him a better person. Like,
Yeah,
how do I
you know,
keep it away from him? But
like
I've had the same
choice-
situation.
Or
Yeah.
even like he said this much earlier in the film, but he's like, I've never seen that darkness, or it didn't scare me,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it does now. It's like you fucking stood up to the Emperor and Darth Vader. It's like, what do you mean you've never seen such darkness?
Yeah.
Like, he's like what are you talking about?
That was
Like,
my
just
next
what are you
point.
talking
That was
about?
my
I think
next
they were
point.
just
It's not
writing
just the
words to
emotion;
make
it's
it
the power
sound-
side.
It's kind of one of those lines I think that you put in there for like a trailer and it sounds like cool. And it's like, oh yeah, like he's never seen that before. But then when you in context, it's like, no, like that doesn't land. It doesn't work. It's not organic.
Even in their own canon, Sidious is one of the most powerful Darksiders of all time, and Luke faced him personally, and Vader as well. I mean, why is he so? What could this dark
Like he
power
saw true evil.
possibly
He
be?
saw true evil.
I mean, is Ren just Cthulhu reincarnated or something? What could he possibly be that would be worth murdering an innocent, at that point, child in his sleep? It's like,
In his sleep, right? Exactly, and not even
Who's
getting,
your
not even like having a
freaking
conversation.
nephew?
no,
Yeah.
not even that I will do what I must moment. It's just, I'm going to kill you in your sleep.
Yeah.
And they think they can just
Compass.
excuse that because it was just a flicker of an instinct, which he is saying. So he's basically not just lying, but also trying to justify it, which is just even worse. It's like, oh god.
The fact that it even occurred at all.
But then
just
moving
wrong.
on, we have Rey jettisoning herself
that
into
thing.
She
Snoke
jettisoned
ship. And this-
herself over there, all right?
Yeah. Which was all happening at the same time. I think that Finn and Rose are coming back, and like that's all happening at the same time. Like all that's the storylines are starting to converge into like the final act and all that stuff.
The first rendering of pointlessness of their entire plot line. Rey got in regardless of what they were trying to do. Before we even get
This
to
is when
the
she's
plan.
arrested. She's arrested by like
Yeah.
Kylo and like brought before Snoke.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk
Return-
about that, or like
Yeah,
are we
that's
talking
what
about?
Should we
this-
cover?
Getting-
Should we
Okay.
cover Finn and Rose stuff first, since that's shorter, or do you just
They already
want
went
to?
to Campo Bay and what that they.
No, I
Well, they- I mean,
them getting on the ship and.
They were
getting hacked.
arrested. They were arrested and about to
Uh,
be executed by Phasma. That's what happened.
Well,
Yeah, we
that-
see Phasma.
It's happening at the same time. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that so we can get through with it. Yeah, let's just. Do
Okay.
that.
It also lays
This
into
is the
Snoke scene as
rivalry
well.
that everyone wanted to see, right? Finn and Phasma, the most like epic, personal confrontation of all time. Just this dichotomy.
Another
Right.
waste of screen time. I feel.
Yeah, like I was done with
I'm not-
Phasma after like the failure to launch in the last movie.
Yeah.
And here she is again.
Honestly, I think she had more screen time in the last movie. Like, seriously.
She did.
dunno.
You're definitely right. She did. She did nothing
Possibly,
but
'cause
arrest them
She
and then
didn't
fight
show
him.
up at the beginning of the movie. She showed up in the middle of the movie, correct?
In this one, she didn't
Yeah,
show up until she came to arrest him. Like that was her intro
It was like
to this
3/4
movie.
of the
Right.
way through the movie. Yeah.
That's so
God,
right.
complete- She's such a
shows
non-entity
up-
for me. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, in the moment when like they're like, "Uh-oh, we're busted," it's because she's there with like,
Yeah,
she
that's
comes
right.
in like, "Ta-da, it's me," the one you were
Oh,
all
yeah,
looking
it's
forward
really
to seeing.
bad.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that
everything's
whole
terrible,
thing was
that's
just
why.
really.
It's crazy.
Anyway,
I mean, that's all I really want to say about it. I really don't want to go into that because it
Yeah.
just wasn't. I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan of it.
Oh, and
That's
just
all I'd
to
say.
cap it off, they
Yeah.
brought back the
Same.
stupid spinning implement of moronic
that,
name.
yeah, that was back with a
Oh, and that
vengeance.
fight,
Yeah.
that fight was just
Yeah.
bad. I thought
Now,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
So the-
but
so
it
we
was
just
important
wanna
to cover
talk
the
about-
that.
and the betrayal thing was like okay. I mean, I was like really okay.
What are
like,
we supposed to be
whatever.
feeling in that moment? That's the other thing. Like, even if it was trying to tell a very small
Oh,
pointless
yeah, the
story,
Del Toro
what were
thing,
we
right,
supposed
yeah.
to be feeling? And it's important to mention this because this is how it leads into the plotline with Snoke next, and the big emotional moment. But what were we feeling here? Are we supposed to feel betrayed? Was this? We weren't seeing this coming, right? I mean, this was a shock to everyone. The guy who was clearly set
I
up
mean,
to
I
be the
didn't
betrayer
see
betrayed
it
them.
coming, but it wasn't like a shock, like a.
well,
Oh
he
my
wasn't
God.
a character. He wasn't
Yeah.
a character.
It was just a.
like he was just like he was a plot device. He was a walking plot device.
But the thing
Like,
is,
so I
all he
mean-
did was flicker the shield and open that door for Rose. He didn't even do the damn
Not-
hack
Not
thing.
everyone can do that though. Not everyone can just use like a little piece of like someone's necklace to like short circuit the entire enemy grid's defense.
And it wasn't even one of his keys. He used
You know
her
what's very funny?
necklace. It's like, oh.
You know, it's funny how when he was saying that when they were actually entering the Snoke's ship, he was like boopity boop boppity bop. I was like, yep, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're doing boopity boop boppity bop. Remember when he's like pressing the keys and
Yep.
you're saying like,
Yep.
it's like yeah.
He is the
That sounds
MacGuffin,
right.
the character, and it's just why.
MacGuffin.
It wasn't even a serious
He was-
MacGuffin. He was just, I'm going to open this door that will then lead you, Rose, into the position you need to be in. And oh, by the way, it's all pointless anyway. It's just.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Let's
Yeah.
go to Snoke.
Oh,
So-
sorry. Just
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
do, sorry.
Alright, go,
just
go.
one thing. If there was one theme, one recurring reality with this film, it was, I don't know if you picked it up. Well, you did pick up on it, but as a point of it was subverted expectation. Every emotional arc within the scenes that we see in every stage of this film, I thought, okay, so this is they're bigging up the intro. Okay, so this bomber run is going to go badly. They bigged up Poe being amazingly, so the bombing run's going to fail, and then it didn't. Okay, so that was surprising. The setup with the villains of Hux and Snoke, the kind of the way Hux just teleports and suddenly he's goody two shoes with Snoke again after having been thrown on the floor. Okay, subjected, whatever. Every little mini moment in this film seems to lead you up into thinking, oh, the film's pointing in this direction, and then pulls the rug on you to the point where you start expecting the rug to be pulled, and then the subverted expectation is
Right.
the rug, it doesn't get pulled.
Yeah.
I felt that throughout the
And I feel like
entirety
they
of this
felt
film.
like- Yeah, I feel like they did twist again for just the title of being bold and different. When
Mm-hmm.
Now,
again, we already discussed it, but like, don't bold and different on its own does not mean good.
so this whole scene, right? Like it begins with him like applauding Kylo for bringing her there. Like
Yeah, even though it
From
was
his-
him who
From
did
his
it.
perspective, what did Kylo do? I was like, he was all, well done, Kylo Ren. And I was like, what did he do? Like, I mean, from your perspective, he was just there when she like jumped back into this area of space, like with a set of
No.
manacles. for
I
her.
mean, well, I think
After
the
the plan
idea
that
that
he put in
at
place.
that point he's supposed to think that. Yeah, exactly. The idea is that since he was having conversations with Rey and brought her back, that's what he's congratulating. But again, it does not make sense because when he reveals that, it was him
did
manipulating
it.
all that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
So it's like there's
He's
no
the one who had
congratulations.
who revealed the
Yeah,
connection. Yeah, it was all
this-
him.
Yeah, I want to make it plain. Like this criticism of mine is like in retrospect after taking in the whole of this scene. Like this makes no sense. But yeah, I wasn't thinking that in the moment. But yeah, seriously, like what was that? I don't know how quickly we want to burn through this.
As quickly
Somebody
as
else
the
can take
film
the
did.
reins here. Like,
So,
Can't do it quicker than the film did.
There's one thing I want to bring up about this whole like power. They're like, oh, the Skywalker blood and stuff like that. And then you have these characters who are like astronomically almost like always more powerful than them. And then you're like, okay, so what is the deal with Kylo? Why is he so special? Like, why is his bloodline like when Snoke is doing much more extraordinary things than he's doing?
It's as Matt said
than anyone
last
has
film.
ever done. Like, where did this fucking guy come from? Like that he's doing.
We're not gonna find out.
No.
Yep.
It's
maybe in a Darth Plagueis like book at some point.
It's
in
like
the future.
it's like Matt said last film. I've got vague plans, I guess. You know, it's like that's literally all we know about Snoke. That is his character. I have vague plans, I suppose. Nothing at all.
No.
And people are actually praising it as like a bold choice that they're like, it doesn't matter who Snoke was. That's why we gave you just little tidbits, and you guys all made these theories about what he was, and he just did. Like it seems like they were like just doing it to be cheeky.
It was insulting. Not just that, but the Rey thing as well. But we'll get to that later.
It was so bad. It just mind-boggling how miscalculated that was. Like I don't know what part of it we want to talk about. But
well, he's like torturing Rey first, and then stops.
Okay. He's like, what did he want to get out of her?
This is the big inconsistency. It's like, I thought Luke was the person we should be friends, but it turns out it was you. Now tell me where Luke is. It's like, what? Like, in the space of a single sentence, he jumps like in. I was just mind blown.
He still wants to find out where Luke is, right? But so he there's an interesting idea here in the sense, like the one thing I liked about this scene is like when he's talking about like Kylo Ren and like how I sensed conflict in him, but now I sense only resolve. I thought, oh, that's interesting, because you can tell Kylo's not about to do whatever Snoke thinks he's going to do, right? Right. Didn't know what was going to happen, but you could tell it was going to be not what
Snoke's
he was expecting.
Yeah.
I liked the idea that he could sense resolve, but not really what that meant. That was interesting. What was stupid beyond belief was that he was narrating what Kylo was doing, not knowing what he was doing. Like when he goes, stupid child, like I can sense him turning the lightsaber. It's like, why are you narrating that? Like, unless you're gonna stop what he's doing, like that lightsaber that he's about to.
Oh no, he was referring to his Kylo's
I
lightsaber.
know. That's ridiculous bad dialogue, because I can sense him turning the sword in your direction. Like that's ridiculous. You could see that with your fucking eyes open, like the audience. Like that's horrendously bad dialogue. The only way that would have made sense is if he would have stopped that lightsaber from going off, the one at his side, and that would have been actually kind of badass. Like, because I was expecting that. I was expecting that. I was like, oh no, like what are you doing? You just fucked up. Like I thought he was about to like turn on both of them, and that would be like a kind of like a reason for Kylo and Rey to like. But it was like what he died. He just fucking died. Like,
you know what's crazy? The people in my theater actually cheered and was like they really liked that moment. And I was like, but that wasn't earned. I guess like you can feed him whatever. You can feed him whatever. Crazy. But for me, I was like, I felt like I was the only one in the theater who was like, no. Everyone else was just like around me was just like, yeah, oh my god, the lightsabers, they're gonna fight together. Yeah, like they were just eating it. They were eating it up. They were eating it up, and I was just like,
no, like there's something. I was surprised. I could say like I thought I had this movie figured out. Like when I went into this movie,
I didn't see it coming either.
I thought it was going to be predictable as fuck. Like, I know it's going to happen. I figured out this movie. It's not going to surprise. It surprised me many times, but in every time it was for like a horrendous reason. Like, that was terrible. Like, that was just terrible.
It's why I mentioned the subverted expectation thing, because this is the scene that really does ram it in. You think, oh, it couldn't possibly be okay, but they're lowering it again. Oh, and they're still lowering the bar. I mean, the bar is in hell at this point. Why the hell are they supposed to go from here? Like, character, and plot, and the theme.
And as and then I'm supposed to take in like this mass fight, and I'm still reeling from what just happened.
Right.
And I know that like this movie goes on for like another half hour from the running time. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is going on here? I didn't even pay attention to the fight.
Yeah. At that moment in the film, I was just like, number 3, the rest of the third act. Like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
Where is the
What
next
are we
film
doing
going to
here?
go? What could they possibly do now? It's just crazy. But
Yeah.
but that fight would have been so much more awesome if if Snoke had stopped the lightsaber and then just given it to Rey and then go on then, and then the knights step in, not the Knights of Ren but whoever they are, the palace guard step in, and then they have the
Praetorian
fight.
guards.
And as they're fighting desperately and they barely carry through, Snoke's just sitting there laughing or just looking at them like that. That would have had tension
can I
because
just-
even if they win the fight, which wasn't guaranteed, they still have to face Snoke. That could have
Can I
had
just
power.
say, like, so that and that room of bodyguards, they like reacted like when Kylo like stepped toward him or whatever he was doing, or like he
Right.
made like a challenging move, and they were like, "Oh, stop, motherfucker!" They fucking watched that like twirling of the lightsaber and weren't like, "Hey, boss!" Like, I mean, they just let that shit happen. Like, I mean, are you serious? Like, I mean, it was. I don't. I mean, I.
Worst guards ever. And why are they so far away from? I mean, I think the aesthetic, but like they're kind of far away from him to actually protect him. One thing I did like though, I did like his little force lightning like on the ground, and then it like
Loved
came up
that.
and hit Kylo. Like that was cool. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
That was at the,
I was-
like
that was
the
the
beginning
beginning
of the
of the
movie, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was like,
I
whoa,
loved
that was kind
That was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's what I mean. That's what I was saying. They built my hopes up. You're going somewhere with this character. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, I was wrong.
It was all just for the rug pull.
100% wrong.
It's just crazy.
And that's the thing with antagonists. It's like you don't necessarily have to know too much about them. They just kind of have to be a credible. You just kind of need someone who's like a real credible threat. But still, it's like
You don't need to understand
you
them.
can't
you
build
need to
something like that
understand-
up. What?
Sorry, you don't need to understand them. You just need to understand their motivation. That's all you need.
Right.
Give us a
You,
motivation.
you don't have to agree with them, but
Yeah.
you have to understand where they're coming from. Yeah.
Give us a motivation and
Right.
give us some solid execution. They gave us neither. They gave us
In
less
this
than
case, though, yeah, and in this case, it would have done to have some explanation as to how he got here, since the previous saga was all about getting rid of these guys, these dark force users, and he's like the most epic one ever, like on screen anyway. So it's
Right.
like, what are we doing right now? Anyway,
And then the fight itself with the guards, I didn't really care. I mean, this is just really just talking about choreography and just aesthetic, whatever. I didn't really care much for it. And again, I don't buy that Rey should be contending with these people or with any of these force users at all. Like, it's one thing, yeah, okay, it's one thing to be powerful with the force and all that jazz, right? But it's another thing to be trained in a martial art, and be effective with that martial art. And for her to be fighting these elite guards, and like, I mean, there was for a few times she got hit. I'll give him credit for that. She got hit a few times, but she does too well in too many things that she does, like in this series.
I never feel that she's like really in jeopardy. She's always
Never.
just like.
No.
I mean, she didn't exactly waltz her way through this, but she didn't really struggle either. So I mean, it's just not no bueno. No thank you.
Yeah. The kills were
Please.
cool though. I will admit the kills were cool. I liked some of those kills, like when she dropped the saber, got the guy, threw the saber to Kylo, back of his head. Like the kills were cool, but the actual step-by-step choreography I felt was kind of lacking.
They got everything right that they should get right by default, but that's not saying much, is it? I mean, this stuff should be good, and the stuff that is more difficult, the emotional impact we're supposed to feel from the scene just was completely gone because we're all just like, huh, what? I mean, Snoke.
Yeah.
I mean, what? And people keep talking to
Yeah.
me and saying that Snoke's going to come back, I guarantee it. He's going to have like spider legs like
I
Maul
don't
or something. I
think
was like, how can you possibly think that? That would be the worst writing in the universe.
I don't know if we were talking about this off camera. I think we were. That the way that in the behind the scenes, that the way that they've been doing these movies kind of was kind of like a game of telephone, because it was kind of like JJ set up, what he did, and then when it was given to Rian Johnson, it wasn't like he had like a huge through line that he needed to follow. It was just kind of like, yeah, just take what I had in my characters and like, do your thing, which definitely comes through because you see like these things, and he's kind of like throwing away kind of the important foundations that even when people were saying like JJ just all he did was mimic, like there were some things he established that were new and some different foundations that just were just left by the wayside.
That's one of the things I want to address here is because whenever a new Star Wars film comes out, people will say this is the best one ever, it's the worst one ever, it's better than the originals, or it's better than the prequels, or it's worse than the prequels, whatever. There's all these different little camps of Star Wars fans,
Right.
and I think that this discussion gets muddled and oversimplified. Somebody who does criticize the prequels, and those there's aspects of those that are really bad, but they're bad for a very different reason. This doesn't even have what those had. Like, one benefit to those is you understood what George Lucas was trying to convey, even if he failed to, because there's like one singular narrative going on. It's much more cohesive and coherent. Like, the attempt is more clear. I don't even know what they're trying to accomplish here because of what you're saying. Because they're not really. There's very clearly not a singular vision or blueprint like here. Like this is the beginning of this story, and this is the end, and this is all the stuff that needs to happen. Fill in the rest. That they're just making movies. They're just popping out movies, and it's like
and that's
what
what I
is
felt a lot
the
with this movie is that it felt episodic. Yeah. I know this is the other episode, Star Wars episode, but it felt episodic in a sitcom kind of way, if that made sense. Not like a serial, not like serial fiction, but a sitcom or not. I'm not saying this correctly.
I know
Oh
what
my
you
God,
mean,
what am I
though.
trying to say?
I know what you
Okay,
mean.
yeah, like I'm not.
Single
articulating
episode that is not necessarily having to be part of a cohesive whole, but there's like single moments where they'll mention something and they'll move on. But instead of having just everything packed into one thing, and like we said before, there's no connection to the previous film. There's no connection to the previous damn originals trilogy. You know, there's no through line. This may as well be a different fictional universe. Very like fundamentally a different universe, and it breaks the tension that we're supposed to be feeling for the characters. For Luke, as we've said, they've completely different characters there. For the reality of the the Senate, you know, where's the Senate at the moment? It's boring, and the prequels did it terribly.
they blew up.
But they've just they're
I
gone
mean,
now.
it's just so bizarre. Like just this movie, like let alone how it relates to the rest of Star Wars in general. It's just bizarre the way they decided to tell this story.
Yeah, I didn't get like you were saying, you had like the whiplash from Snoke and like what? I what brought me back into it is after the fight was over, and then we have just the Rey and Kylo conversation. This is kind of like really the second, because they had the conversation in the elevator where she's like, I can feel the conflict with you, the Return of the Jedi thing. But when they had the conversation at the end of it, and Kylo presents like, you know, like forget the Jedi, the Sith, the Empire, the First Order, the Resistance. Like let's just start something anew. Like let's not deal with all this stuff that's gonna destroy the past. And he's like, join me, and I was like,
could we not have ended it there? Like that could have been a good ending. Like you know, like because then we can see like where do we go with that in the third one. I was constantly I'm still wondering that now. Like, where do we go in the third one? Because of the next act that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, the moment we get to in a minute is where I think they should have ended it, and it's for that exact same reason. This part of their relationship, this part of the story that they could have gone, they were going to go in that direction for. That they should have stopped there. It would have been the ultimate ending to that film.
And bring up the performances again, because I like what Adam was saying when he's like, you're holding on, like, you know, he was like angry. He was like, you're holding on, stop. Like he did that Adam Driver. Like if you're familiar with his performances, he does that a lot, that anger method acting little thing. And then even Daisy just saying like, you know, don't go this way. Like just the way that they were saying their words, I was like, God, I'm feeling it. You know, even though like everything that was happening before was just like, so like, what is happening? Like, I don't understand. I'm perplexed. Their moments, just them in the moment, just their close-ups back and forth, just them being actors. Like, I appreciated it on a craft aspect, just the craft of acting. Like, I don't know if that ever came through you guys, but like those two like really connected with me.
Well, it really like fell on its face for me and at the end of the last film, and this one it worked better because there was more groundwork leading up to this dichotomy or like this relationship between the two. So it definitely worked much more effectively this time around for me.
For me,
and I did think that he in particular, I thought turned in a much stronger performance throughout this whole movie than he did in the first one, or was allowed to. I'm not even trying to put the blame on him. The point is, I just didn't relate to his character last time, and this time I could.
Definitely. For me, their performances are the only thing grounding this mercurial mess in any way. Like the fact that we feel anything in that scene, it's poorly written, poorly executed. There's no build up on the emotional level for the actual scene itself, but still they managed to get across that connection between the two characters. It's really impressive and genuinely nice to see in that scene because it's a really good setup in theory.
And then the tug of war, which leads into what I think we all said was our favorite.
Yes,
easily. Image thing. So yeah.
But before we get onto that though, because we've got there's
before we get onto it,
the emotional element of the transports being blown up.
Yeah, because that was the whole thing. Is that the plan was that, hey, we're not just gonna stay in the transport and just die. We're actually gonna like hide away in our little transports, which are not gonna be detecting, to the planet Crate, which they were gonna hide on the rebel base that was there. But then of course it gets sussed out because of the
Del Toro
character or whatever,
DJ
and Finn and Rose. if they hadn't done what they
Yeah.
did,
Well,
everything would have been
So
fine.
they're all getting
He's-
pummeled.
He's the reason why.
Yeah, but it's another kind of point where Poe was wrong, and it kind of adds to the situation at the end. But
And Poe, Poe is like kind of the reason because he's in so
Oh yeah.
it was
he
one of
sent Finn
those.
off to do that. So it's kind of his fault that because they could have made it out.
Yeah.
Not that I'm blaming him, as a
yeah.
character. Obviously, he didn't know this, but the idea is
That's
he had that.
perfectly
Yeah,
what he should do because that is who he is.
Yeah.
It's a flaw. It's a character flaw, not in the sense of like a narrative flaw. It's just like that's what he needs to learn as a character right now in this movie.
and that's why one of the main reasons I liked the idea of the whole conflict in the first place. The early execution was forced, and it made it all pointless drama mechanics. But the ending and the idea behind it was good. The tension between the command and the person who is coming into his own as a leader, the lessons that need to be learned, the way the conflict was handled, it was all good. It just needed to be done properly, which it wasn't. And again, this comes to the point that was undercut for me at the end. The transports getting blown up, which was again the sound design that was beautiful. The heart drop, almost as like the heartbeat. Of,
I felt the deaths in this. I don't know what I think it maybe was the sound design, but I felt every death.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It gives you so much of an impact.
Except for Snoke. I was just perplexed with Snoke.
Yeah, I think we all were.
Yeah, like you feel the impacts of those shots, but the annoying thing again is the Admiral doesn't immediately turn around and stop it.
I was just gonna say, because we're gonna talk about what she ends up doing, which is amazing. I just wish she'd done it a little sooner. As soon as she sees what's going on, I wish she would have done what she did. It went on for too long. They to the point that they had they started off with like a dozen ships or something. They're 3 or 4 at the end. It's could you not have gotten your ass in gear a little bit quicker, to do what you're about to do, which is really badass. But
and it's not just a nitpick because it's the part of what the character is supposed to be. Which is supposed to be at this point sold as this intelligent thinker, as this badass admiral who gets the job done. You should have been first shot. You see the panic and rise. You see that moment of realization. Straight into the chair. Straight into sweeping the.
She should have turned on her heel and sat in that chair and was like, "This is what we're doing." It just in I think they even cut to other shit in between all that. So that it felt even longer. Yeah, it felt even longer than it even really was. For that reason.
It was, and it was just such poorly executed end because that I think we can all agree that moment where she does actually drive that ship through the thing, that was just
the best movie.
It was exquisite.
That's my favorite moment in any film that they've made since Disney bought this franchise. That's my favorite scene.
Completely agree.
Easily.
And then completely very soundless, and you can hear people in the theater whoa. They knew they were seeing the most beautiful image of Star Wars.
It was the intake of breath, the actual intake of breath that everyone in the cinema took, and you understood it was a beautiful, exquisite moment. And for me, that's where the film should have ended. If everything had paid off and the build-up had been done and the execution of it, that moment could have been the emotional payoff and the lockup. And then the ship's been cut in half. The rebellion is sparking the new hope for the First Order's destruction. Lightsaber's been sliced. Rey and Ren have been set up. All that jazz. If it had been done properly, this would have been the ending point, and it would have been encapsulated in all time. It kind of felt like it too.
In terms of just the rhythm, the cadence of movies and sequences of scenes, it felt like okay, all right, we're gonna end. You can stop.
Yeah.
And then this one,
and then it went on for half an hour.
It went on for It did another third act. It did a second and third act, and then there was another ending, which we'll talk about. Which I was like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
But I think after the explosion, we get Hux finding, which again, I hate this as well, that they have, you see the close-up of Snoke, and he has this really weird eye and tongue out, really campy death scene. And then he his legs fall off the chair, the throne. And I'm again, with this comedy that you keep, can we have a moment? Can we just have a moment of any tension that you don't break with comedy? It's just,
It was just a failure on so many levels.
I did like the idea that he was about to finish off.
Oh yeah,
that was interesting.
I enjoyed that.
But again, undercut by the fact that he's not a villain; he's a comic relief character that's been belittled the entire time. That would have been an amazing moment.
I just enjoyed that because, actually, it's my favorite thing that he's done because he's just been a failure to launch since he started. Everything he's done, I've had issues with, literally everything.
Yeah.
Up to that moment with that character. What's his name? Hux.
Right.
Hux.
Hux. Yeah, General Hux.
General Hux somehow.
General Hux. Yeah. And then, I at that point I was just so confused as to where we were going, and I felt like the characters were too, because they're well, what happened? She killed the Supreme Leader and took his transport. Let's go. It was to kill the Supreme Leader. Well, what are you guys doing then? What are you working toward? Like, I mean, I just...
And that's what Hux was saying too. He's like,
Well,
we have
your
no
Hux was
leader.
like, we have no leader.
But they didn't even but they didn't really stop to regroup. There was no like speech where like he took over or explained what this new order is going on forward from here. It's just like, let's carry on and do a callback to Empire and like attack the rebel base.
We don't even know what it was before though. Don't know what it is, can be now. So it's just another layer of pointless meaninglessness. There's no weight to anything at all.
Which again, why do they station their AT? Well, they're called AT-M6s now, by the way, not AT-ATs. Why push them so far back so they have like this tension of them walking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't. That's just silly. Like,
why not send hundreds more? They've shown earlier in the film having just racked up on hangars. I mean, what are you holding them back for? This is the last of the resistance. I mean, why are you waiting?
Right. Why are you even meeting them down there? Because they didn't say they destroyed the dreadnought. They destroyed a dreadnought. Just zip one of those things over and do what you tried to do at the start of this stupid movie, and just
or an orbital strike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, they dropped down another Death Star. It's a small Death Star this time, but it's still another Death Star. It's like, oh god.
Yeah.
I gave him a pass on that. I like that. That's the least of the problems this movie had.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they got a portable cannon. Great. Like that's fine. I don't care.
This is the point. We've reached a point in the review as well where it's like, what do we talk about? Because so much of what happens, despite the fact that this is supposed to be the finale, is just kind of.
You know what? Yeah, you guys can drive the bus on this. I'm over the keys.
Yeah, actually, I don't really care about it either.
I don't want the responsibility of talking about this.
I mean, the only thing I'm okay with talking about is the Luke stuff. But in terms of like the battle itself, I don't really have a lot.
There's not much to say.
Okay, well,
there's not much to say,
Finn,
you know.
Maybe the Finn thing where he was about to sacrifice himself.
Yes.
Like I really did. Like for a moment, I was like,
this
is getting real.
That was the first moment we'd actually seen him have a character moment. That was this. Okay, this is the first big defining moment. Now let it end. And then, you've wasted the sacrifices of 20 people because now I guess you want to save Finn. Like I liked Rose, but that made no sense.
Poe's arc gets completed as well, which I like too. Poe's arc completed.
But that Rose sat there like saying, "But this is how we'll win, saving the ones we love." And then in the background, you just see the rebel base getting blown up. It's like, what? 20 people died trying to get to that ship and to destroy it, and you've just ruined their sacrifice. I mean, what is happening here?
Kind of wish that they had even established though that what he was gonna do wasn't would have been even effective. Because to me, I was half expecting, because at that point, Luke hadn't shown up to save the day yet, so I was expecting him to kill himself pointlessly. It wouldn't have been the Independence Day moment. It would have been you tried, close but no cigar kind of moment. I was expecting it to just be a slap in the face. And then really my problem with that was the kiss. I didn't really care that she said it.
It kind of comes out of nowhere.
It came way out of nowhere and was awkward and terrible.
She's known him for less than 17 hours.
I saw the crush, but but her
actually,
dropping the L love, the L word.
to actually be fully committed in that sense. I didn't see it coming, and then it happened, and I just wish it hadn't.
She went
even Finn didn't wish it didn't happen. Do you see the way he reacted? He's like,
that was not. That's what made it so awkward.
Yeah,
that's what made it.
He literally did not. From? You know how people kiss and they pucker? She puckered, and he was just no, he didn't pucker at all.
I mean, he did. The only thing he could have done to make it even more awkward is turn his head that would have he did that. Oh, God. That's the only thing that would have made it worse. That's the only thing.
But the thing is,
already pretty bad.
But the thing is, it kind of spoils the moment, because one of the moment is absolutely ludicrously, insanely terrible. It just fundamentally destroys everything that they were trying to do for no reason. There's also the fact that she's known him for hero worship, immediate disappointment, and because she feels betrayed by him. 16 hours later, she's in love with him. I mean, what has happened here?
Yeah. Pick a lane here, please. What are we doing?
Pick a bloody racetrack. It's just crazy. But yeah, that's basically all that was to be spoken about that outside of Luke. Which,
so it's Luke returning.
Ray teleports back into the Falcon and appears.
We forgot the tree. Him burning the tree.
Oh, we forgot Yoda.
Oh my God.
We forgot Yoda. Yeah. How did we miss that?
I'm sorry. We did.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Thank you, Evan.
I don't even know.
Yeah, no problem. He goes back to the tree. He goes back to the tree intending to burn the books. Yeah. And then, lo and behold, Yoda shows up.
I was watching a fan film.
And not Obi-Wan and not Anakin.
Can we talk about... I hate to be the negative guy here, but just the way he looked what was that?
Right.
Like, was he supposed to be like a CGI of one of the puppets? Like, what was that?
More than
Like,
I think
that,
it's
more
more
than
an
that,
actual
was he like? Did anyone see him when he nearly came on? I laughed out loud when I first saw him appear because I thought, "Oh God, they screwed it up again." And then he got better. He got like the next scene or next shot.
I
He
agree.
improved.
But when he first showed up, he just looked like an awkward doll. Like they shot against, they propped against a green screen, and like it just looked terrible. Like I couldn't believe what they'd done.
Ready, I had the same exact reaction when he first showed up. I literally out loud went, "What?"
Yeah, I know. I was like, "What the?"
And I was like, "Oh wait, I'm sorry," because I knew the people around me were like enjoying it, so I didn't want to like encroach on that. But I was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry," like, but like I was like, but then you're right. Like as the scene went on, it's like, okay, I'm getting okay.
It's not just me though, because he did genuinely appear like I thought, oh my God, they've done the prequel Yoda again. How? And then immediately they changed. Oh, okay, it's not right, but it's
what
better.
I thought they did at first, I thought it was like a prequel Yoda and puppet. So I was like,
What I'm saying, like what was
Weird
it? What was it? Like, was it two different puppets, or was it like a CGI of the puppet and they didn't get it right, and then they changed it? Like, I mean, I don't know what that was.
I mean, I was cool with what he was saying at the end. Again, if you're okay with like going with the line that okay, I agree that Luke has this issue he needs to go with, and him having to learn this message of failure. Like, okay, the lines themselves, Yoda was saying was okay, but just the greater context of it was just like that whole scene. I was just like, what is happening here?
Wait a minute,
It felt like another insult to the fans as well. Like when he's like, all these ancient texts, this history, these legends, is like, who cares about this? It's like, what the hell are you talking about, dude?
Page turners, they were not.
It's like,
yeah, but I mean, so Yoda burned the things with his lightning, but like he smited the Jedi text.
Yeah, that was
right?
weird that him
Which-
doing that.
which makes no sense anyway,
no.
because they're not supposed to be able to help.
Yeah, but let's just table
Yeah,
that. Let's just
the
table
rules
that.
of the Force were kind of broken there.
So Luke, if I remember it right, was, well, those were the sacred Jedi texts, right? Like he objected to him burning them. Like after you said it's time for the Jedi to end, like
here's what I thought
is
at
he
first. I
feeling?
thought Yoda was testing him. I thought he was burning him to be like, "Hi, you really do care about the Jedi," or something like
He
that.
didn't
You know
say
what I mean?
that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
I thought he was doing that too.
Yeah, everyone
mean,
thought that because it
do
was
it.
framed that
I
way,
was-
and they just did nothing with it. And also, the books aren't even there because Ray pulled them out. So did Yoda know that? I mean, we don't know.
Oh, that was the last of the Jedi religion, and it's like, yeah, well. But I mean, he goes like, did you read them? And he was like, well, it's like he didn't even read them. Like
Yeah, that's what it
why
sounded like
do
to me
you-
too. I wasn't
Like,
sure
mean,
about that. Yeah.
Why did you? Who cares then? Like, really, who gives a flying fuck? Like, I mean, like, it just doesn't. Like, you're the last Jedi, and you didn't read the Jedi book. Like, who cares? Like, burn it. Like,
You had
use it
30
as-
years to read them too. Like, what?
Plenty of years. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't. And you are also of the opinion that it's time for this to go away anyway. Like, so why? It just doesn't
it
make
was a
any
baffling
sense.
scene. It was a baffling scene for me. It really was.
It also touched on something that
Yeah,
we've glossed over already as well. Like there's a kind of meta message in this film where they're saying let go and just forget about the past and it's move on and create something new. You know, it's Ren's message to Rey. It's Yoda's message to Luke in theory. Luke's kind of spouting it himself as well. You know, Leia. You know, we've got everything we need to build a new rebellion. You know, everything's like just scrap everything from the past and move forward. And it's like, to the point where they almost sound like they're intentionally insulting you. Like, you know, Ren shouting out, let it go, you're still holding on, let go. Forget all this important shit that makes perfect sense that you care about and just focus on this and me and whatever the hell they're doing
for
right
that
now.
specific performance, I think I was okay with because their whole thing, their connection was her like trying to find someone to latch onto, whether it was Luke, whether it was Han, whether it was her parents that she doesn't know. Like that, I agree with you. What you were saying all before that, but in terms of the Kylo and him saying that to Rey, I think that actually did work.
It fits the scene and it fits the characters. I don't get me wrong. I just mean that it's also another instance of the storytellers fitting
Right.
it.
I agree.
It fits the
I agree
moment,
with
but
your line of
yeah,
thinking.
the message it's trying to say, and the entire film seems to be saying that. And like, it's just, I don't know why. Why are they trying to say get rid of everything else? Like,
I mean, I just wish that conversation had been grounded in like the point, like when he says like we are what they grow beyond. Like that has nothing to do with like the Jedi text burning thing. Like I mean, I just wish that he'd actually gone somewhere, like just focused the conversation from the get-go instead of the nonsense that came in the first half of that conversation. But the thing is, it doesn't seem to really matter because like I don't want to jump around too much here, but that conversation gave me the expectation that Luke was going to get his shit together and hang in for the next film.
yeah,
Yep.
and train
Yep.
Rey.
Instead, he kind of just gives up.
Yep. It's just
Okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah,
scene, 'cause
we'll move- yeah,
this
let's-
actually-
that follows on.
This leads in. This
Should
actually
we?
leads
But
in.
before we get into the very end, should we also talk about how we kind of get a revelation about Rey's parents too?
Oh my
Another
god, I
part
forgot
of
about
the
that.
inside.
Lie? I mean, that's got to be a lie, right? Like, I
That's-
mean,
it must be.
Who knows?
But it doesn't seem to be
I
portrayed
thought
as
that
that.
at
guess not,
first.
like-
I thought it was a lie at first. I thought it was a red herring, and they're like, okay, we're gonna like let them think she's this junkyard or whatever. But now, like seeing what the filmmakers were like trying to achieve, and like what the media is like putting out, is that they're making the Force inclusive. You don't have to be special to like. And I get that.
Right.
The
It's not a
prequels and
bad
the midichlorians.
So
The people
wait a
were put
minute,
off by
like-
the.
I just want to be clear then.
Yeah.
So if this is so Kylo Ren is the last Skywalker for all intents and purposes. That's what we're saying. That's it.
Yep.
I'm done. That's me like excusing myself from like any stake in this trilogy. Then that's ridiculous.
All right. I get what they were trying to achieve, but again, it was just another thing. It's just like that's not the way to do it, and also I don't think it ever was an issue of you can't do it because you're not a Force sensitive. I mean, that's what we have the Resistance for. That's what we have characters like Poe and Finn and Rose. They represent that. The Jedi are supposed to be gods. Like that's one of the things I also when the Leia thing happened and she did her Mary Poppins, as you guys call it. I was like, wow, I'm like watching this. They're demigods. Like they are. This is a science fantasy, and we're looking at demigods doing demigod things. So to say that they wanted that to be in place just to make a point that you can come from nowhere and still be all right. I don't think that lands for Rey, especially with how much power she's given, you know what I mean? Like, just in her character.
They were
She
drunks
is-
on a
it didn't
junk
land.
planet. Was her parents
Yeah,
like
that sold her to slavery.
She is good at everything she does. We know three things about her. She's good at everything she does. She's a nice person with a personality we can get along with. And she wants to know who her parents are. That's literally the only thing we know about Rey 2 films in. And she's the main character, supposedly. Can you think of anything else we know about her? Outside of those 3 points? Her motivations, any arcs she goes through, her relationships to the other characters outside of like, oh, you're kind of cool, I like you.
It just makes no sense, even in the context of like the last movie where like Kylo Ren's like what girl like he like knew
Right,
of a
that
reference.
too.
Like it makes
Yeah,
no
what?
sense. Like
And that's what I was saying about the telephone thing too, about them not carrying over the through lines of the story. You know what I mean? Like the establishment is supposed to be like, oh, she's supposed to be some special, like she's got some sort of power, and he knew about her, beforehand.
Right,
like
yeah.
he heard just girl. Oh, girl, I know I heard about it. This girl once that like was really good with the Force.
See what I mean? It's like I felt that they had
The stories
nothing
don't even
left
agree.
to like.
No.
I felt that they couldn't disappoint me further. Like I was like, I'm done. Like they can't mess this up anymore. But it's like, you guys are on a mission, like to just decimate everything. Like I mean,
It is
your
insane.
quest is almost complete. Like just only one more film to go and you're done.
I mean, and where do they
So-
even go
Alright,
with that
so
film?
now we go to live.
They
now
have
we can go to
they
live.
have less than 3 hours to complete everything for this trilogy, unless it's just going to be a through line into the next trilogy they're doing. Because I know they are doing more, but I didn't think
I
they were
also had a
supposed to be
feeling about
part
that
of it.
because of the way it ended, like the very ending. I was like, is this going to be more like episode 9, 10, 11, 12? Like, it's not really going to be like a 3
It's the only way I think they can do it. There is no possible
myself.
way the next film can be good. Maybe as an isolated product, not that I expect that to happen, but there's no way it can fit anything that's come before it. It's just not possible. It's crazy. I don't know what they're doing with it. But regardless, moving on back to the Battle of Hoth that isn't Hoth, because look, honest, it's not Hoth. Look, it's salt. It's salt on a salt plane.
Yeah, salt, not snow.
However, I never would have expected this salt on this giant salt plane. But
Hey guys, a little bit of a detail that's really cool. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but when Kylo is fighting Luke, and you see his feet, they show a shot of his feet.
Yeah,
he
the salt
moves
doesn't
the
move.
And then when you see Luke, it's not moving. Little cool thing,
Yeah.
but
The thing that gave it away for me was the lightsaber, because I thought either you're going to have the
That doesn't make no
entire
sense.
yeah
I
the
was gonna
internet
say,
is
like, what is
wasn't
that? Yeah.
destroyed. Like, what's wrong?
Yeah,
And
you
I thought it was
very
just
clearly
movie
see
being
that.
lazy.
I thought it was going to be
I
a
literally thought it was
continuity
movie
error.
being lazy.
Yeah, I thought it was continuity
No,
error. That's how bad
I-
the film was in terms of consistency. And I thought the internet is going to tear you apart for this. You have messed up.
Yeah.
And then I thought, wait, hang on, the salt. Okay, so projection then, because it mentioned in the film that projection was a thing. That it's part of one of the powers they're trying to get across.
What?
I actually, I thought they actually just Rorschached him. Like I thought he blew up. Like I thought he was dead. Like because the salt's red, right? But when they fire at the ground and I said, you just fucking blew up this guy who was pretending to be Luke Skywalker. That's cool. I'm done with this anyway. I'm just done. But then like when he was still standing there, I was like, oh.
And then he dusts
like
his
is he
sleeve
gonna be
off.
like?
Dust his
I
sleeve
was like,
off.
Matt, I had the same feeling, not with the pull-up part, because I knew he was gonna survive that. I knew they were gonna kill him at that point. But when Kylo put his saber through him, I was like, fine, just kill him. I don't even anymore. I really was like, and I was like, wow, I was like. I had an internal conversation. Yes, I had an internal conversation with myself, and I was like, "Wow!" I just verbalized in my mind, "Yeah, kill Luke." Like I had that thought.
Antoine. Now we know how he wanted to kill Ren. Now we know it was just that easy. That's why he wanted to kill Ren in his sleep. That was what his thought process was. I mean, this guy is just a non-entity. I might as well just kill him. It's just mind-boggling.
Well, before we get into the fight, we also get the little reunion between Leia and Luke, sort of. But
it's like, yeah.
She hugs him, which shouldn't be possible, but never mind.
And he kisses her, yeah.
I'm going. Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, I'm going like, wait, what was that?
It was a fine scene though. During what was happening, it was kind of sweet. Oh, we forgot something completely, guys. I'm so sorry.
What?
When R2 shows Luke, I thought that was actually an okay callback. Like I thought that actually got to me. I was like, oh yeah, but it made me mad because I was like, Luke, are you forgetting the boy you used to be? Like you used to like want to go out. I mean, that's the reason why they were showing him too. They were kind of reminding him, Luke, remember who you were, and he was just kind of like,
Simba, you have forgotten. But yeah,
you know what really pissed me off?
Just wanted to put that out there.
Like when Yoda was like, "Still Skywalker." It's like, this ain't still Skywalker. Like this is like, so like, what are you talking about? This is somebody else.
Some crazed hobo pretending to be the Grandmaster.
It's like,
seriously,
really, really Jedi spirits. Like, couldn't you have come giving him a pep talk at some point? Like before.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing. It's been 30 years. Like, why is he just appearing now without Obi-Wan and Anakin? It's like, what consistency?
Anyway,
you know what I also thought was cool? That would have been a nice through line is if it was an Anakin Vader, whatever they go with, whether it's a Hayden Christensen or they got some old guy who looks like old Vader.
I agree with the moment.
Because of the conflict that he was going through with Ben Solo. Again, this is if you accept what he did with Ben Solo and how he screwed that up. Because Anakin went through that same thing with Luke, so I thought it'd been more effective if we had that character having that scene with Luke rather than Yoda, who I mean is fine, but doesn't have that same connection with Luke Skywalker.
I would agree with that. They no way in a million years they'd ever do Hayden Christensen though, because that was one of the big, no Senate, no Force Ghost Hayden Christensen, no, there was no way. But I agree that it would have more meaning if they did something like that, or Obi-Wan, or all three of them. Why just Yoda? So because that was the one they could get away with easily without having to use.
Well, it's actors. Also the most obvious callback to Empire.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's a lot of callbacks in Empire in this. That's like you can. Yes, it's not like The Force Awakens was, and how it's basically the same story told in the same order. It is random moments taken at random points, but there is a join me moment. There is a Hoth battle. There is a Dagobah cave. There is the twist, I guess, of the parents thing. There's the there's loads of them.
So
you can look throughout the entire film.
It would be really easy to set up like that fans just bitch. Like, well, you said The Force Awakens was just a New Hope, and this one's bold and different, and you're still not happy. It's like, but it's not that simple. It's not.
And also, when people were making those criticisms of Force Awakens, it wasn't just that it followed beat by beat, more or less, A New Hope. It was just the fact that the story hadn't involved, like the universe hadn't, and people try to like simplify it too, like, oh, fans just didn't like it because it was exactly like. It wasn't just that it was a very similar plot line. It was a deeper thing than that. It was
a status quo thing.
Right.
I mean,
which they do in this film. They've now gone back to the status quo. Evil Empire, back to the rebellion. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, but A New Hope just has like part of like what that has going for it is like a discernible plot. You can tell like why that story is being told, even if don't know anything about Star Wars. The Force Awakens is different. Anyway, I don't remember what we were talking about before we forgot to.
We just gotta get to the Luke Kylo fight. That's all.
Yeah, the fight.
We've got to get through it. I mean, it tells you a lot, doesn't it? But yeah, the fight itself was, again, it was obvious that what was going on because the lightsaber and the salt. It was very clear that
it was kind of
survived
cool.
the latest thing.
It was kind of cool.
It was all right in terms of
it was unique, but still.
It was the fact that you expected something to happen, and also because of the way the film had shown you had been portrayed beforehand, the thing you expected you knew wasn't going to happen because it was going to do something different. But like the laser fire hits him. It's like, okay. Either he's Grandmaster Luke as we know him, because only Grandmaster Jedi could pull that level of insanity off, but in which case, how the hell did he ever lose the Jedi Temple in the first place from a hut just falling on him? That stuff like that. But then it cuts to him you expect, I guess they're just going to kill him off like Ben. I guess he's just going to die now. And then he doesn't. And then it's, he's alive. Excellent. I want to see where he goes in the new film. Right. We might actually get to see Luke again. Oh, but then he dies. It's like, okay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean,
Luke
was kind of,
Skywalker is dead.
as I'm watching it, I'm going, that's kind of clever how they have him like dodging instead of actually meeting the strike, because that would give the game away. But it's like, so he projected himself so he's not going to die. Oh, he died.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you around. See you around, kid.
So, I mean,
he says, "See you around, kid," and then disappears.
I guess in the realization that he's dead, why did that have to be an illusion anyway? Was it just so you could like tease at some grandmastery, crazy, godlike ability that he wouldn't really have in the context of your story by having him survive a barrage of fire? Because that's really superficial reasoning. I don't understand. Like, if you were just going to kill him, why didn't he actually just show up and just die and do the Ben Kenobi thing? Like,
and also, Luke didn't really do anything. Like, remember when Kylo, he says, "Are you here to save my soul?" And he's like, "No."
right.
That's what you did for Vader. Like,
exactly.
He's there to buy the rebellion.
What did you learn, Luke? What did you learn? Oh, you just to give him a diversion in that, like, okay, I'm not going to be the last Jedi. Yeah, you don't have to be the last Jedi because you don't really have to die right now, buddy. Like,
and also, really, you're not a Jedi, mate. You haven't been for a very long time.
Yeah,
Neither is Rey. I mean, Rey's just a Force
Not in the
user with obscene
slightest.
power. She's not a Jedi, from what we've seen. But yeah, he buys the rebellion time because they're the rebellion now, the 12 guys that are left, just to fight the entire First Order, which presumably takes over the entire galaxy at this point. But we don't know that because we don't know what the galaxy state is. We don't know how the universe reacted to the government being blown up. It's all
just have this galaxy. Fuck this galaxy.
Fuck it. Yeah, exactly. Forget about it. I don't care.
And then, of course, we have the big reveal moment of Rey lifting the rocks. It's like, oh, wow, this is a magical moment, except that why is this...
But also, how did she be able to do that?
Well, one, she shouldn't be able to.
That's a lot of rocks.
One, she shouldn't be able to do that, but
seriously.
from what we've shown, she's shown thus far, it's not a surprise that she can do that. But that kind of undercuts the point. It's supposed to be this big reveal. Look how powerful I am. It's like, this isn't a surprise. You've done everything without even the slightest frame of reference or any training or any skill of whatsoever until now. This is not a surprise.
I completely agree, and I don't even like the way it's shot because it's boring. She's just doing this, and she's not even like strained.
No,
she's not like in some pose where like she's trying. It's so boring. Like, I mean, just
she is the definition of a Mary Sue. She is. I don't use that term lightly.
Yeah, I don't use that term lightly. I think a lot of people use it way too fast and loose, but it's unfortunate. I mean, she doesn't fit it 100% perfectly, but she is extremely close to what a Mary Sue character is. And yeah, it's like, do we not remember even in Empire Strikes Back? Like, you remember how hard it was for Luke just to put some pebbles, like stack them together?
Yeah.
And she's like got a whole mountainside. Yeah,
the thing I like to point out to people is, does everyone remember the moment in Empire Strikes Back at the very start where he just struggles to pull the lightsaber from the snow, and how amazing that moment is, and how it lingers on it, and it's like he's focusing and the music rises and he's feeling the forces. The first time we see his development through the years, and he's still only barely able to do it, and it's big triumph moment. Cuts himself down. He's just cutting himself down. Yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah, it's a struggle. You want to see that.
Yeah,
we don't have that with Rey. We don't see too much of a struggle, so you can't really empathize or like root for her because it's like you're just perfect. You're just perfect, man.
Like,
all he was doing was cut himself down from the ceiling as well. Like, that's it, and he moved on. That's all it needed to be. A small moment, and then you go to Yoda, and then you get the philosophy, you get the build up, you get the explanation for how it's very quite fast, but we're supposed to assume more time has passed because of the traveling of the Falcon, but. He then gets trained by Yoda, he then gets better, and he still gets beaten. He still loses to Vader. There is weight to it because we see the expectation, we see the build-up, we see the payoff. It works. It's not just, Rey walks into the fight with Vader and defeats him because she can, because...
Which would happen. If he was... I mean, she arrived fully formed, and that's so boring. Like,
while also not having a clue. That's kind of her arc. She's not supposed to know all of this, and yet somehow it doesn't matter. Where's the tension?
But at least we got a nice Target Toys commercial with those kids at the end.
Oh yeah.
I think that's all we need to talk about because then it's just the which felt to me, I was like, man, I'm watching a Marvel movie, but they forgot to put the credits in the middle and then have this like towards the end because like the Falcon going in Lightspeed was like, okay, this is definitely the ending, right? And you're like, what are they doing? I was like, wait, are we about to watch like another 30 minutes of this movie? Like, is that what's happening right now?
The escape of the kids on the back of the
kid was telling
animals.
the whole story and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, is it gonna be like a Canto bite? Like, okay, like this is what the casino planet was for, and like I was scared at that point.
Oh man.
But yeah, it fell flat on its face like that sequence.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the end. That was the end of the film. And now we're back to status quo. We're back to the
So
start of
not
New
to
Hope.
like, not to baffle our audience here, but like I genuinely didn't hate this film despite everything we just
Right.
talked about.
Me too.
Right,
I
yeah.
genuinely didn't.
No, same,
I'm
yeah.
just I'm like in this limbo realm with it. I feel like I have like a, if it's possible, like a tripolar opinion of this. It just runs the gamut. There's things in it I love, like, and then there's things in it that are just so impossibly wrong, but they're there. Like, I mean, but I don't know. You should see it. I mean,
yes, please watch
it
this
is
film.
worth seeing.
Please watch it at some point. It will stick with you forever.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, Matt. I'm nonplussed by this. I don't hate it. I don't even know what I'd be hating if I did. It's just
right.
It's just a travesty of a film.
Can't quantify it in my brain.
It's
I don't know how to process it.
It's fundamentally broken on every level, and it's got some good ideas. And again, that I know it's just one moment, but it cannot be overstated how perfect that hyperspace smashing through the ship was. That was just this is filmmaking. This is exquisite. This is art. I love it. I would wish that had been the end, and all of the build up to it had been actually made sense and made it pay off even more. But it didn't matter. But apart from that, the film was just kind of to why is this happening for me. What about you, Evan?
Same. Honestly.
That was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, this is still very raw for you, so you're probably still kind of computing it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to see this. I think I'm gonna see this again and really like process it a bit more.
You'll be able to process it better. Definitely.
Yeah.
On second time.
And you've seen it twice.
Yeah,
Anton,
I
what are your
agree.
closing
And the
thoughts?
hashtag not my Luke is definitely like my huge takeaway. That's the thing I truly hate about the movie. Like, if there's one thing I can say I hate, it is Luke Skywalker.
Oh yeah.
Which is terrible. I never thought in my life.
That's not Luke Skywalker. That's not Luke Skywalker.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
And really,
but other than that, like I said in the beginning, I do like some of the other things I was going on. I really like Poe's arc that he had. Didn't really care too much for Finn or Rose. Really liked the connection between Kylo and Rey. The humor was hit and miss. There were some that was like generally like made me laugh out loud, and others were like, "Stop beating me over the head with your comedy." But yeah, it's a mixed bag. Like it's literally the definition of a mixed bag. It's almonds, M&Ms, some nails are in there occasionally. Maybe some glass, some glass. Maybe a licorice every now and again. Some candy corn.
And the bag's on fire as well. That's just
yeah. Where's this going?
It's a mess. It's a mess of a movie. Did you give your final thoughts already?
Yes, yeah. Nonplussed confusion and mentality.
That's our.
I've said everything I've wanted to say at this point.
That is our review. Yeah.
I will say, has messaged us in Skype right now. He was saying that he is watching it tomorrow just to confirm it, and he will be part of our conversation going forward. I let him know that we're doing intermission and stuff like that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're about to cut to intermission, guys. We'll be back in about 10 minutes, and then we'll open up with questions and conversation and just have a chat with you about whatever you want. Stuff in the film, stuff in general. It'll be great. Yeah, post-talk.
Yeah, so like we'll a 30-minute like Q&A conversation.
Yeah. And we'll come back with Connor's thoughts on this in a later video. Probably go into more detail on certain things we've missed, because this is such a mess of a film. We have missed some stuff. Right. I mean, we almost missed Yoda, for Christ's sake. That's how bad it is. But yeah, we will have other things to talk about, and maybe that'll come from the quick Q&A as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. For those who are sticking around, we'll see you in about 10 minutes time. See you in a bit.
See you guys.
See ya.
See you soon.
Stream.
And we're back. Hello, everyone.
Long
First
time no
question.
see.
First question is Retty's new look, or comment, I should say.
Raising look. What's up? Why are you Jesus now?
I am not Jesus. I usually have the hair up in a messy bun, but it doesn't go well with the headset on, so I leave it down in the evenings. It is currently 4:15 in the morning here. I've been up for almost 24 hours now. Apologies if I tape it out at the end of the review there.
The one thing I want to bring up is this article, this big thing that's happening like over the weekend about people who don't understand, people who are critical of the movie, and then other like people who don't understand, people who love it as well. So this is a Hollywood Reporter article. It's titled "The Last Jedi: An Explanation for Some Fans' Disappointment and Ire." And it goes, since The Last Jedi opened Thursday night, a portion of moviegoers made it very clear via social media and through audience scores that there is a deep divide over the Disney film. It does some more summary stuff about like the 93% Rotten Tomatoes and 56% audience score, which isn't exactly accurate, but still it does show that there's haters out there. But what they're trying to equate it to is that the fact, their conclusion, their scientific conclusion, journalistic conclusion.
This will be interesting.
Is that because people are so involved with their YouTube theories that they say, like they specifically say YouTube theories, that they're so disappointed that their theories did not come true is the reason why they don't like this film. Now, I think that is belittling what people's true criticism. Like if you listen to someone who actually has true criticisms of the film and not just saying like, "Oh, Snoke wasn't Plagueis, I'm so mad," you know, like it's
he
not
wasn't
that
anybody. Like that was
he wasn't anybody. Yeah.
He wasn't anything. And I think that this thing that's being perpetuated by the media, like over this over the weekend, has been really it's been bugging me just a little bit that it's been so like trivialized in that way, you know, like that they think people are like that.
I think Disney knows how to like offset criticism in that way or try to skew public opinion in their favor.
I wouldn't
not
put
so
that
nice
past them.
means.
Yeah.
Like they've done stuff like just the this film, they've used it as a strong arm tactic. There've been smaller, more independently owned theaters that they were like, you have to show this film for like however long, like the full theatrical release run, like however many months. And they're like, well, it's like a small town and only so many people are going to want to see this movie so many times, and we want to show other stuff. It's like you don't get it, period, which is like a huge, cancellation on that theater's potential profits, or you get it and you show it for the length of time that we demand. So they're the empire. just saying.
Could you post that
so
article,
that's so whenever we do
Antoine?
questions,
Because some people are
post
asking,
it. I can post it. Yeah, I will post it for you guys.
or at least give them the location of it so they can see what they want to read.
Oh no, I'll hook them up with that link. I'm gonna hit you guys with the link in the chat right now. Go ahead and ask more questions, and they'll take it. You guys go ahead and take questions, and I'll.
Yeah.
Where we've been reading questions just out of the chat.
Yeah, just out of the chat. It's coming up on the main screen as well.
I think I need to be a mod to be able to do it because it's not giving me a link. Oh, you know what, guys? Just search this, and then you'll find it because I can't post links in YouTube chat.
Do you guys think that if Haldo told everyone the plan, half of everything in The Last Jedi could have been avoided? Yes, because there wouldn't have been dissension in the ranks, leading to mutiny and just an entire mess of no plan being told. Everything would be unified. It's again, as Matt said, it's manufactured drama.
Yeah, I also don't think that's like one of the lessers of the issues of the movie. Like I think that's more like plot convenience, and I'll kind of like be okay with that. Because I think there's larger issues at play than just like that small little like thing.
Definitely, but it is one of the big ones for me because it undercuts her character. You know, the establishment of her as character. Why has she made this decision? She's supposed to be intelligent. Everything we see later proves that she's a badass character, and here she's like, it just doesn't fit. For me, anyway.
I have one from Padere here. He says, "Where do you guys think this saga would go from here?" The one thing I will give like some credit to, because I think it's kind of interesting, is that now we kind of get to see what it would have been like if Vader would have been Palpatine, like if he actually would have if he actually would have survived the Emperor and how he would have ruled. But other than that, like I have no clue, like what to look forward to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like a blind man, like feeling around a dark room. I have no idea where they're going from here.
Not only
Yeah,
where
I
they're
got-
going,
I
but
got
where they
that.
could go. It's just baffling.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
They didn't really set anything up major, honestly, aside from Kylo Ren now being the new supreme leader. That's
Right.
about it.
Supreme leader of what, by the way?
Yeah,
I'm not quite
yeah,
sure.
precisely. Supreme leader of what, why, how, when. All of these are questions that will never be answered.
I can't
looking for
believe
new
that.
questions.
I
Where
just can't
are
believe
the
how
missing?
They swept him under the rug like that.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. Like I said, the bar is in hell at this point. It couldn't possibly get any lower. He thought before they lowered the bar again. But people are asking where the missing
Yeah,
Force
just give
cast
it time,
episodes
you'll
are.
see.
Where the what?
People are asking where the missing Forcecast episodes. Some of them will
Oh,
be emerging
yeah.
in the next few days. In the next 24 hours, I'm going to be posting up more content that we've been creating in prep for this kind of Fanalysis launch. There's a lot coming. We've got a lot.
Don't do too much. We need
No, I know.
let that be
I'm
backlogged.
just doing
Okay.
the initial launch stuff we discussed. But yeah, we've got some videos up, and we are recording them a lot more frequently now in different combinations of us. So you can expect lots more content to come, not just for Star
Yeah,
Wars,
and we-
but for Harry Potter,
exactly. I wanted to
Avatar.
mention that. Yeah,
Do we want to?
we've
Oh,
already
yeah,
have
thanks.
Avatar finished. Oh, we're not finished, but we have it started. We have an Avatar podcast started. We're thinking about doing a Game of Thrones one, which we still have to get everybody coordinated for to do that. And Harry Potter, I think those are our major ones, right?
Yeah, at the moment,
Yes,
everything we
Yeah,
want
we
to
have
be
plans to
confused
do.
about, basically.
And we have plans to do like random films and certain other things.
Right.
Like these are not all current things. Like they're just we're going to be branching off a lot.
Yeah, just to have
do
the
we
ability to
wanna-
confuse about any random things we want to at any given time.
I just wonder because this one was announced and like so they would know to expect it. But do we want to talk about the fiasco with the Tales of the Jedi?
Yes, that's what I was about to mention
boy,
next.
yes,
Some of the
okay,
episodes,
so-
some of the episodes you will be getting. The Clone Wars, for example, will be next. The Star Wars videos that are uploaded very shortly.
We finished the Clone Wars, didn't we?
We did. They will
part
be going
one
up
and
in the
two.
next.
Oh, I
at least,
forgot we finished
at least
that.
part one will be going up in the next 24 hours, provided my internet allows it. As will a steady stream of content on top of that for different genres. But the Tales of the Past was an interesting.
Yeah.
Part one we recorded and it went very well, and that will eventually be released at some point in the future. But part two went terribly, and part three we did one of the best recordings we've ever had for about 2.5 hours until my PC decided it was going to shut down and corrupt the recording file. So we lost that, and we don't want to return to that for a good year or two, I'm afraid. So you won't be getting that
Can't
for a
do
long
it.
time.
Not after
And
that.
also, we're not numbering episodes anymore. We're just saying whatever topic it is. Correct. So we
Yeah,
don't-
depending on
in that
the
situation,
series
yeah.
at the time, we'll be framing it based on the most logical moment. Like for
Right.
example, Avatar, series 1, episode 1, series 2, episode 2, that kind of thing.
Right.
But and Harry Potter will be based on however we want to do that in the end, be it chapter or arc or book, respectively. But yeah, we'll be changing it based on the needs of the series and the video we're talking about.
Zach Briggs says, question, how do you think George Lucas is responding to the divisive reaction to The Last Jedi? I really think he's on an island right now, just sipping a martini with his $2 billion. I don't think he gives a
cares.
fuck about Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah.
He's
Doesn't
just
care
dead to
one
him.
bit.
I mean, it's not Star Wars anyway
I
to him,
agree.
is it? Let's face it. Even if he
No.
was invested.
Have you guys been watching Rebels? I fell off in season 3, and I'm not planning on watching season 4.
Fell off at the trailer for the show.
I finished.
Don't watch it. Yeah.
I finished season 2 and never went back to it because we didn't do a review for it, and that's literally the only reason I watched the show. There were some good moments. I didn't hate it, but overall it was meh, and there were some really bad moments.
And it wasn't like I actively hated it. It just became same with Walking Dead. I just stopped watching it in 1 week, and I was like, oh, I missed it this week. And then another week passed, and I missed it. And I was like, oh, I missed it. I was like, I guess I'm not watching Rebels anymore. It was just a natural distant thing. I just don't want to watch anything of it anymore.
You missed the episode.
Yeah, I
but you didn't
finished
miss the
season 3
series.
and I just didn't care to go any further, honestly. We'll see.
Ezra is DJ confirmed. Yes, Zach Briggs, this is true. Snoke is also Ezra.
It wouldn't
At the
matter,
same
man. It would
time,
head
which makes no
closer,
sense,
closer.
but let's face it, nothing else about
It would
Snoke
have about the
does, so.
same impact.
Thoughts on Anakin's lightsaber being destroyed? I think it had more meaning than just the in lore or the in movie thing. I think it had more to do with Disney saying we're starting anew and
Let it go.
let it go.
Which they say basically.
And thank you for calling Anakin's lightsaber because some people call it Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah, which I get, but I don't agree with for obvious reasons.
what happened to Luke's green lightsaber? I assumed he just stopped using it, right?
Well, no, we saw it in
When he
the,
first
in the
taken
we
the
saw it in the
Answer to
vision.
that
In the
question?
vision.
Do you
We saw it in
think
the
you're going to get
in
an answer to
the
that question?
dream, but we didn't see.
I mean,
Yeah, he
with
just.
all they were neglected to answer, like they're never going to pick up on that one.
I assume he just.
Maybe it's inside. Maybe it's inside R2D2.
Well, to be fair, we have an answer. I mean, that was the point of the throwing over the shoulder thing, right? It's like he just threw it away one day and never went back to it.
I just threw it away.
Taken by the tide, because a lightsaber is just a tool. At the end of the day, it's not an extension of your spirit and your connection to the Force that he created in Ben's hut with schematics from it. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
EU doesn't exist. Pff, gone. It's just a lightsaber, and now it's irrelevant.
DB6195 says, thoughts on Mark Hamill saying Luke was at his strongest in Return of the Jedi. I find that a lot of the crew or cast or anyone who works on Star Wars looks at those sorts of things very differently, I think, than the lore does.
What do they mean when he says strongest? Like, I don't
Like
even know.
he's
Yeah,
most
exactly.
powerful. Like that's what he like.
Like, is he actually quoted as saying that? Because I don't even know. Like,
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
I
if
haven't
you
heard
could
that
kind of
either,
like an
yeah.
actual quote for that, that'd be great.
Because
in the
did he? Because you can, when you talk about the strength of a character, you can be talking about the strength of the character, like their willpower, or you know what I mean, like the strength of the writing, like behind the character. So I mean, yeah, he was at his best in that movie, but I don't know what he meant.
That's right. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys can keep going and answer.
Sorry. Someone asked for some
Table at
positivity. Do you guys have any positives from the Disney canon? Mika Brown. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Any positivity from
The
Disney
Lost
Channel.
Stars. You guys have not read The Lost Stars. That is a phenomenal book. Check that out.
I've not read
I like
that
the Canon
one.
comics. The Canon comics are super dope.
Yeah.
That may as well just be Clone Wars, let's face it. That's old.
Yeah.
But all of the stuff that could fit into the previous canon, not because it fits in the previous canon, but because of the way the stories are framed and the setting are explored, I recommend those. They kind of completely undermine everything good about it in this film, but Heir to the Jedi is a particularly good book. It explains some of the challenges Luke has in learning how to connect with the Force in different ways from different people. Again, made completely relevant by this film, but...
I wonder what you guys think about this too. What do you guys? Question is from Kalish Synth. Thoughts of JJ directing Episode 9?
I don't want that job. Like, good luck, man.
After this, I mean,
Is he writing it as well?
I guess.
I'm not sure if he's writing it because last time he co-wrote it with Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's gonna be the exclusive writer. But yeah, I don't know because I think JJ, his thing is that he's really good at presenting questions and presenting like mystery, and I don't know how he's going to conclude. It's not even just on his own. Like even if this movie did like actually let itself not conclude the way it did, I don't even know how JJ would have, based on his track record, how he would take the end of a trilogy because he's much better at presenting questions that usually he doesn't know the answers to and let somebody else answer it. So now with this situation where he doesn't really have much to work with, it's gonna be an interesting film.
But it's like
Yeah.
you said, like who's to say that this is like the end of a trilogy? What if it's just like a bridge between this and like the next
this
one
trilogy
or
and the next one.
whatever? And why does there always have to be a trilogy? Like, I mean, I get that they're doing standalone stuff, but seriously,
I mean, this one may as well not have been. There's nothing really making it a trilogy apart from the fact that there happen to be 3 films.
no, I just mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Like,
But in this one, it's particularly, I don't know why they've done it the way they have.
I'll answer that really quick. I've read some of the Mace Windu comic, but it's not
terrible.
You read it too?
I read
Matt
the
told me
first
some of that
I read
stuff.
the first
Yeah, I
issue.
hate it too,
Like,
yeah.
I thought it was like one of the worst things ever. Sorry, whoever asked that question. I'm not in the chat reading it. I hate that.
Yeah, you sent
Wow,
me
I
a
know
few
you
shots.
read it.
didn't
Yeah,
you?
I read it too, and I was just like, I'm done.
I read because it was prequel era, and I thought, what are they doing with that? Like, they just stood out, like compared to the other stuff that they're producing at the time. And so I read the first couple issues, and I have copious notes on why that's wrong.
The answer is nothing. They're doing
wait.
nothing with the previous era. From those comics, anyway.
I just saw a question. Though I don't know. I just saw a question for you, like for everybody. Okay. Snoopy Rogue 3 says, question, will you guys be more active on YouTube? So I guess like some people don't know what's going on with you guys, but like what is the status of your channels or what you're planning to do?
I've been
Uh,
seriously delayed because of my school. Basically, I mean, I don't have any other excuse than that. I just finished up my last semester, my latest semester just the other week, so I am going to be getting back to making content more regularly now. But I've just been delayed because of a bunch of just a hectic school schedule, honestly.
Same as ever for me. I have a sporadic schedule. Like you see a lot of me and you see lots of nothing. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Because real life, you
I
know.
do I do have I do have a script ready, just so you guys know, for my next video. But as for what it is, I'll keep that on the down low. And Callan and I are still working on that versus finale.
And
Yes,
then
with
Callan, of course, he's heading up Fanalysis, which is going to be very, very active because we do
Yes.
have like a pretty substantial backlog. At least at least we have like something consistent for like at least 2 months, right? Something like that,
Yeah,
right?
something close to
Please,
that.
yeah.
And I'm
At
confident,
least,
unlike before, I'm confident in our ability to maintain the output as well. I don't think
right?
we'll have
I
any
think so
problems.
too.
Well, the idea, guys, is to have at least one a week, at least, but preferably two. And we feel
Hopefully.
comfortable in the ability to produce that. I like the format we've been doing with the stuff that we have been working on thus far, and we'll see what you guys think of it when it gets released in the next 24 hours, allowing for upload times if my computer decides to have a panic.
Right.
Mhm.
And then for me, I just have, as you guys know, I'm writing a book right now, which is being edited right now. I'm actually literally like it's about to get done. That's why I haven't had like as many verses, and I've just been having other videos, and also I've just been kind of like not as motivated for verses like recently. And I know a lot of you guys like that the most, but yeah, that's it for me, really.
So some other questions. How would you guys rank all of the Star Wars films? That's an interesting one.
Oh,
Empire is
boy.
top for me, without a question. I know it's a bit of a boring answer,
My
but
favorites. I mean, I've answered this before, but my favorite's Return of the Jedi, even though it's not objectively the best one.
that's fine.
I have the same reason for why Revenge of the Sith is higher than most people would have it because I think it's also not a very good film, but just because I go into that with all the baggage of what I know from like my experience with the Clone Wars micro series and the comics and the books. When I watch that, I'm bringing all of that with me. You know what I mean? So like it's a little bit higher than I think right now. It's like fourth or fifth on my list. I did a video recently of the tops. I don't know where I would put Last Jedi. Like it's that weird that I have no idea where
It
it
kind
goes.
of
different.
exists in its own
It's in a
little.
different
Yeah, it has its own
Yeah.
list over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine we'll at some
Yeah.
point do a video where we do discuss the ordering for each of them, how and why we think that we put them there in more detail. But I'm with you, Antoine.
Yeah, it's a
Revenge
whole
of the
videos
Sith.
worth, I guess.
Yeah, it's something we
Yeah.
can table. I'm with you, Antoine. Though, Revenge of the Sith is not a good film, but I have a lot of kind of headcanon and obviously the
Right,
fiction we know
me too.
that makes it have a lot more thematic oomph than it otherwise has. It makes it really powerful.
I really like Revenge of the Sith's soundtrack.
Yes, that's another
so
one.
like I like the prequel
Pretty good.
soundtrack in general. So that kind of helps me feel like what that story was supposed to be, even the areas where it stumbles. But just to put a button on this, I just confirm that Empire is easily my favorite of the Star Wars films, or like what I consider to be the best made one. So both, not just it's not a good movie, but I like it. Like it's both to me. Like it's the best, and I like it.
Something we didn't mention about this
would
film actually. The soundtrack
you-
is just as ambient and meh as the first film.
I disagree. Like,
Yeah.
I like
Honestly.
this soundtrack more than TFA's. I can remember musical cues. I can remember nothing from The Force Awakens. Like I seriously can't.
There were moments in this film that were
I mean, I
original
remember
trilogy
Rose's-
pieces
Rose had a
and
theme that
Ren's
was alright.
theme. I didn't recall
did,
much of
yeah.
anything
It just-
else.
They played a lot of like. I haven't listened to the soundtrack. Okay, and I'm not sure how much of it was new, but just the way that music was used was more successful in this movie for me. Because there's lots of stuff like there's stuff that was played in like other more iconic movies or like moments from like the other movies, so original pieces. But I can remember musical cues. I cannot remember anything from The Force Awakens.
Same with me, but I think most of the instances for me are, like you say, the original stuff. The big one, obviously, being Luke and the twin sons. That was I was like, well, this is cheating. You can't play this music. You can play this music over anything, and it will feel like it's important.
Yeah.
That's how good it is.
Roberto Quinteno says, "Do you guys want to see an Obi-Wan movie?" Which has been confirmed, but not attached with Ewan McGregor, which troubles me.
If they don't
Yes,
attach
that
it to
troubles
Ewan
me greatly.
McGregor,
If they
they're
recast
idiots.
him, I'm gonna be livid.
There is no reason to do that. He's up for it, and everyone wants it. So
But
why wouldn't they?
what is the story that they're likely to tell though?
It's the in between.
I could say, huh?
It's in between.
Probably him on Tatooine. Yeah.
But what? Okay, what I'm expressing doubt over, like given what they've already done, like what are they likely to do that's interesting and good and worth telling with that, like without shoehorning someone that doesn't belong there? There's people asking for a confrontation with Vader in the movie like that, which would make no sense. But that's how people think. They want another badass lightsaber fight. That wrecks the story.
That's true.
You know, so I just don't know what you expect from a movie like that. I don't need to see it if it's not going to be great, and I have no reason really to think that it would be.
I mean, granted, I just want it to be a character piece if they do it.
Right.
I want them
I think that's
to do
what
a
they'll
film
do.
that has. I want them to do a film that's like completely new. Like stop adapting stuff or using characters or moments or ideas we've already seen. Please just do
Ryan
something.
Johnson, I don't know how much you like this, but Ryan Johnson is greenlit for a trilogy, which takes place.
What does that mean?
It's
what were you saying?
completely separate from anything we've seen in Star Wars. That's what the press release said.
Claim, right? Like,
The claim is that
and
it's
I go.
completely.
I mean, considering he made this movie, I don't know, whatever. But like, I'll give
Yeah,
him
who knows?
some rope there. I mean,
Who knows?
I seriously, I don't want any Skywalkers. I don't want anyone to say the phrase "fulfill your destiny." I don't want it to be about this. I don't want it to be in this timeline. I just want something completely different. That's what I want.
Star nerd question: what was your opinion of the Thrawn book, the new one, if you have read it?
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot barge pole.
Well, I mean, it's by Timothy Zahn, though.
I know, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot
It's
barge
like James
pole.
Lucino. But yeah, I'm also. Well, I mean, I'm not touching it only because I actually
Say it.
don't really care.
Yeah.
I opened it up at the bookstore, read the first few pages, closed the book, and then walked away.
Evan, a bookstore isn't a library. You must
Immigrant
purchase the
has a
book before
question
reading it.
mostly for Great Jedi 91. Having just heard your reaction to the Obi-Wan movie, would you be okay with a canon-style vibe with Ashrad Het as the fallen Jedi villain?
You know, they
Like
would
basically
do
the
that.
comic book.
Like they would never do that. Like if they did it, that's really like in the context of that story, it's much more relevant for Oshrod's development than Obi-Wan's, though. You know, like, so why? I don't know. I'm gonna say probably not. I don't really know what they would do with that, because you know they're not going in there with Darth Krayt. So what's really the point?
Maybe
Sorry to
Snoke
be
was actually
negative.
Darth Krayt.
Seriously. Oh my god.
Ay.
Question. Sorry, I
If
think we're
Luke's-
rounding off now.
If Luke's character wasn't butchered and was regular Grandmaster Luke, would it have saved this movie, or would it have made the movie predictable? It's less about Luke's status as Grandmaster, unless you mean more his character anyway, which I presume you do. Sorry. It's more the fact that the state of the setting around Luke. For me, not just because it's the EU and I love the EU, but because the way the Jedi Academy was built up in the lore, and the characters that were born from that. Not just the Jedi, but the characters in the environment, the partners of the Jedi, the infrastructure behind the temple, how it interacted with galactic politics, how it interacted with the new developments of the Force, new techniques. Everything grew out of the idea of the Academy, and it seems to perfectly fit the direction of where Luke was supposed to be going. I mean, even the idea of Yoda saying, "Pass on what you've learned." It was set to happen. Return of the Jedi, and that hasn't. It's the exact opposite. They could not possibly be more the opposite direction of what they were supposed to be going. And that's what bothers me. Obviously, they've ruined Luke's character as well, but that's almost beside the point from the setting side.
Yeah.
I specifically was not looking for the overpowered Luke in the canon, but I did want his personality and what he was trying to convey to remain, but it didn't happen. So, it is what it is. You guys have any questions that are popping up that I'm not seeing any really good ones?
Is the new Star Wars salvageable for you guys, and would you ever give up on it completely? I'm kind of already at that point, to be honest. I do it.
Yeah, I
I
think
I'm
I
actually
am.
I'm actually at that part. While watching the movie, I actually had that idea. I was like, you know what? Next year, I think I'm just gonna like from my geeky stuff, just like Avatar, because I really like Avatar, and it never really bothers me. Even like Korra, where people sometimes have issues with that, I still really love Korra as well.
There's a lot to
So
love. It's heavily flawed compared
yeah,
to the original,
exactly.
but it's
That'll
still
be
a lot to love.
interesting when we do discuss that, though, because like that'll be on the docket to get to it, and there's a lot to discuss there.
Yeah, the three of us have very conflicting, well, not conflicting, varied opinions on Korra and the different levels of what we love and why we love them. It'll be an interesting discussion to get to at some point, but that's a while off because we've got so many episodes of Aang to do. Not that I regret that, because I love doing every minute of them. Legend of Aang is amazing. Sorry, Last Airbender. Legend of Aang for me because I'm in the UK.
Yeah, I know you're okay. I'm just trying to look at questions I think that are good.
What would
sorry, guys.
What would your ideal a Star Wars movie be? For me, ideally, obviously it can never happen, but me would be a rework of the Thrawn trilogy done properly.
That'd be dope.
That would have been that's the logical
That'd be
continuation.
interesting, yeah.
To me, that's the logical continuation from the original trilogy to me, and then that bridges the gap.
No,
between
I
that
would
and the
not want it
Academy.
to be a direct adaptation because there's things about that.
Oh,
book
of
that I
course,
just
that's why I say rework because they work in book
But
format.
like the idea of it, the idea of it, yeah.
But they don't work in film, all of it. But the idea is brilliant. I love it. Will you guys do a Star Trek episode? I'm sure we will at some point.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
Star
Trek.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know enough about Star Trek that much worth knowing. Like I've seen the movies. That's about it. I know some of the history about it, but I'm not like I wouldn't call myself a fan.
I'm in the same camp. I'd be happy to do a video of it if it was based on maybe the new stuff that I don't need to have all the knowledge of the previous. Because not because I don't want to learn the others, but for me to be able to enthuse and inform about something like as sprawling and huge as Trek, you need to know your stuff, and there's not much point. It goes back to the whole you can love something as much as someone who knows more, but you're not as big a fan because you don't know the stuff, so you can't explore it. I don't want to be.
All right, let's take like 2 more questions. So make your questions good, guys, in the chat.
Yeah, see what jumps out at us.
You're instantly gonna get a terrible one now.
I know. Like,
What
well,
was?
we won't pull like the first one we see was a good one. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going. No, I wasn't reading a question. I was making a joke, but I realised in my head that it was terrible and not worth making, so I stopped. I apologise. I'd love to see a Darth Vader movie.
Funny, but these aren't questions, yeah.
I would not.
I guess
They'd probably
that's
mess
okay.
it up.
Levi Webb says, "What is you all's favorite Star Wars book?"
Oh, that's a good one. Mine has to be Dark Rendezvous. Purely on the book itself, Dark Rendezvous, because that is a masterpiece on so many different levels. Not perfect, but it is a masterpiece in my opinion.
I
From
go
what it
Revenge of
achieves.
the Sith. I literally like.
I go Revenge of the Sith too.
It's
Yeah.
not just my favorite Star Wars book. It's like one of my favorite books. Like,
Yeah.
Same.
I'm with you on that one, everyone.
I'm in that. It's either that or Shatterpoint, and for different the same author, by the way. But,
yeah, I know. Actually, Shatterpoint's my
Revenge of
second.
the Sith means more in the grander scale. Like it's more important, so probably that one.
Everybody said theirs. Oh, yeah, everybody said theirs. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Last question,
Do
guys.
you think, guys,
Make it
Coleman
quick.
Treble
Make
would
it
have
quick.
saved this movie if he was... No.
You choose, Callan.
I'm looking.
Still
I'm
have
looking.
No
for
pressure.
good questions.
We've already
Funny
talked
that you
about.
mentioned
Yeah, a
that
lot of these
WJ.
we've already mentioned and talked about.
Yeah.
Balance
exactly.
is coming
I
up
was
a
like,
lot at the moment. There was no balance in this film. It's one of the biggest problems. Not just on a narrative level, but thematically, there's just a mess. It's a jambled mess. Darth Jar Jar for episode 9. I actually, believe it or not, considered the possibility of that happening. That's how bad we're at the moment.
Are you for real?
That's not happening.
It won't ever happen. But I've realised,
Yeah.
oh god, that is how they could lower the bar if they chose to.
Oh, that's a fine one, I guess. Padera says, "Are you ever going to put Rey in a versus series?" Personally, in her current state, no. Just because
Yeah.
she's, to me, there's no. foundation to her, really. Me personally, no. Like, it's just me. It's a no for
She
me.
needs more definition on
Right.
what she's
Much
capable
more
of. At the
definition.
moment, you could put her against anyone and she'd win just by the fact that she's Rey. So give her some limitations, give her some scale in a defined setting that actually has rules to it. Then yeah, maybe. I do like Rey. That's another thing I want to talk about. Actually, I do like all of the characters.
I like
They're
Rey
just
as well. As a
not
character, I like
really
her.
characters.
She's fine as a character. It's just what they do with her. That's the problem.
They don't have any arcs. They don't have any progression. They don't really have any relationships between each other. They're just faces, except for Ren, who has just now been given a very small amount of development in this last film. And I do like what the ideas they're reaching for. They're kind of scraping their hands against broken glass along the way.
All right, if you can pull any more, you can pull them. Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
10 seconds here.
9, 8.
If Chewbacca or Leia, okay, William Henning, did you guys think it would have made more of a meaningful moment and a much cleaner tie-up of loose ends if Chewbacca or Leia would have been the one to sacrifice themselves? Yes. I'm a big fan of the way Chewbacca died in the original canon, because it kind of got his character out of the way of the story. Not that it needed to be in the way, but it was a really nice send-off for him, in my opinion. They haven't done that yet with the new ones.
I was happy with the way it was, but I guess it probably would have. Yeah, it would have been. I mean, if that's the question, like, would it have been more impactful? It would have been, because Chewie is more beloved and known than what's her name? But I respect her. I can't remember what her name was. Purple hair, right? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, Chewie doing that
so.
same thing. Ooh,
definitely not in that moment though. It would have to be a completely different scenario. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit. But yeah, I get where they come from.
All right, cool. So I think that's it.
Yeah. If there's anything you want to throw them out.
Kind of dry.
Yeah. But we'll do this again at some point soon, and I'll probably prep the chat thing better this time, next time, because I didn't really know what the scale or anything.
Like more games. Like I want to do the heads up thing, or just like trivia or something like that. But not just for Star Wars, but anything we're doing.
We can do individual videos on that as well. But yeah, basically the new idea for the whole Fanalysis banner that we're going with. We're still doing Council Forcecast, by the way, just under the Fanalysis banner. There'll be individual series podcasts that we do in general. But we just want to be able to enthuse about things in less defined terms. We don't want to just do Star Wars. We want to be able to do other things, because we are fans of many series in many different fictional universes. And as we've seen, Star Wars is going in a direction a little bit outside of what we'd want at the moment. So, sorry, one good question. I saw a question before. I meant to mention it, but someone was talking at the time. Legends Archives, they're still coming. Technically, they've still come. They just haven't been released because of the reasons we explained earlier. But the Clone Wars counts as Legends Archive. That will be the one going up in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
Again, internet allowing.
And I think since we all mentioned it last time we spoke together, we all put Revenge of the Sith's novel on the list of things we wanted to talk about, right?
Yes.
Because I would very much like to
weren't we
do that.
going to do a vote for something? I forget what it was between. Because I said we just did an animated series, so now we should do a book. Oh yeah, we want to do a book. That's right.
I kind of assumed that like you wrote down the plan because I didn't remember. All right. Anyway,
we both like present them with like several books, and then they would choose.
Yeah.
I just forgot. I don't think we ever.
So
if we
Revenge
remember which ones
to
we're
the
going
Sith or Mystery. And the mystery choice will be decided by me.
We'll remember. Yeah, just choose the question mark option. But yeah, we'll release the questions soon, and whichever way we happen to do, even if it's the tail end of a different episode. But we'll be getting back to Legends Archive stuff as soon as possible. And again, keep your eye on the channel. We'll be releasing stuff imminently, as soon as internet allows. But I need to go to bed because it's currently 4:45 in the morning, and I'm tired. Thank you, everyone.
Studios tomorrow, so I gotta peace out to you.
Yeah, but thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you all on the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let us know what you think of the new format. Ready for signing off. I still don't have an outro.
Oh, we're doing that. Great Jedi 91. I hope this was cathartic. Have a nice day.
This is Antoine. Peace, love, and may the force be with you.
Evan 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.